What is up? What is up? What's up, everybody? It's so good to see you. Welcome to the Thrift Store studio, and thank you very much for tuning into Reality Decoded this 26th of February 2021, where the sequel to 2020 just won't quit and keeps getting bigger and better by the minute. So we've got some very illustrious presence in the chat there. Give it up, everybody, to Annie Burdell, the most prestigious person I know. Lois Young, hello there. Welcome. You are a newbie to the audience, it would seem. Very warm welcome to you. We always like to get new people to the Thrift Store studio and to become part of the Reality crew that do tune in to these Reality Decoded live streams. So we've got our lovely Becky P, we've got Trip, we've got Kelly Kibo, and that's about it, I think, at the moment. So who knows, we may get a few more regular offenders as the night continues. So let me disperse with my cute thumbnail. You're welcome, Sugar Plum. It's always a pleasure to have you among the crowd, and I think a lot of people will also have a similar affection towards you as I do. And way back in the early days of TSP TV, Annie over at Prepper Chicks was one of the first people that sort of I connected to in a similar mindset, and ever since then we've been quite good buddies and have plotted some world domination and had some wonderful experiences down rabbit holes tonight. And it is very nice that she is here with us tonight, because I'm going to sort of pimp a little bit of intention that we will be trying to bring a panel show to you next week on a similar themed subject to where we are going tonight with the Mind Wars theme. And as I said, it is all about the frequencies, and what we are doing a little bit today is following on somewhat from what we saw back on Monday night when I did do the rerun of 1985 Decoded, which a few months ago was sort of the seed, I guess, that sort of developed into what we are now known as Reality Decoded, as we have stepped away from TSP TV under copyright strikes and community strikes and God knows whatever else our dear old artificial intelligent algorithm likes to throw my way in terms of passive censorship and shadow banning. But as I said, 1985 Decoded was a little bit of an art project, sort of a time capsule type thing, try to replicate what it was like back in the 1980s to kind of sit there late night and surf cable TV. And the reason was because the frequencies, I do believe that back then in the 1980s, in the dawn of the digital era, what was known as the first generation of digital devices, and bear in mind we are in the fifth generation of digital devices, and what that exactly means is what I have been trying to sort of unravel in the sort of mysteries of doing some research back on some stuff in the 1980s for another topic on time travel. I stumbled across some very interesting reports and sort of mini documentaries that were shown on CNN back in the 1985, in the good old 80s, the last feel-good decade of the that I can remember anyway. And you know what I was trying to sort of unravel within the 1985 Decoded was what made the 80s so good, what made them so memorable, and why do we remember them so fondly? Well, was it because they were using electromagnetic frequencies at the dawn of the digital era, what was the first generation of digital technology, the watches, the Walkmans, Atari, ColecoVision, VHS, Betamax? All of this stuff was thrown at us far and wide and made very accessible and affordable, and these were the devices that we started to bring into our home for the first time, that were surrounded by radio frequencies, EMF frequencies, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, were these tools of entertainment little more than robots in disguise? Transformers, another popular 80s genre that some of you may or may have grown up. Welcome, Mrs. L, just seen you creeped in there. But as I said, back in the 80s, we brought all these digital devices into our home, and were they more than psychotronic electromagnetic frequency directed energy weapons? And during the 1985 Decoded, I did kind of sort of cut up and chop parts of those documentaries that I found in amongst other sort of supporting pieces of information, be it from the news streams in 1985 or popular entertainment, it kind of suggested that, well, wait a minute, maybe we are being hypnotized, maybe we are being mind controlled, maybe we are being programmed to behave and think in a certain manner. And certainly I've managed to decode my program. I know exactly, and maybe in the future I will try and sort of present that to you to sort of make it understandable, maybe something you can relate to. But you know, the 1980s, as I said, was the last feel-good decade. The 1990s brought us grunge, it brought us the dysfunctional families in the form of The Simpsons. Baby P. One, that was for you, my darling. And excuse me, I did just have a huge supper before I went on air of some homemade fried chicken sandwiches and a pile of French fries cooked in lard and butter. But I digress. So that was what the sort of purpose of 1985 Decoded was all about, to try and understand that, or consider the possibility that were we being bombarded with wavelengths in sort of previously up until that point, things that were sort of uncommon within the household. Fast forward 2021, you're probably never 6 feet away from a digital electronic psychotronic weapon of mind distraction or mind disruption, whatever you want. WMDs, look, weapons of mind destruction. Not only that, we sometimes wear these like digital watches, and I did actually just remind myself that I forgot to add a clip to this, but we know we do wear things like smart watches, we have smartphones, smart TVs, smart refrigerators, smart everything. Self-surveilling, monitoring, advanced analysis, research, technology is what SMART is an acronym, although I did make a bit of a pig's ear on it. It is weaponized, it is militarized technology, it is designed to give whoever holds the smart technology an advantage over its enemy, because it can detect exactly what its enemy is doing and or transmit that information back in pretty much real time. And nowadays we have an artificially intelligent algorithm robotic handler that resides within all of our cellular devices. In some of these cellular devices within our households, we sync together so we can swap and change information, switch from our phone to our refrigerator, from our refrigerator to our tablet. All of this is synced, and are people becoming an extension of that network, and are we becoming synced with each other? And is all of this vaccine malarkey and the COVID-19 a very big smokescreen, but the delivery system to implement such things as nanotechnology via a syringe that can be put into our blood system, that can then sync up to these networks, and then using the technology available to governments and big high-tech corporate dictatorships, can they then use that against us in order to control our minds? Not only that, the symptoms of electromagnetic frequencies and radio frequency sensitivity are also identical to that of the symptoms of COVID-19. So is it a pathological? Is it made up of pathogens? Is it a virus that is transmitted person to person? Or is it a disease or a virus that can be transmitted via our cellular devices, simulating electronically the symptoms of a viral coronavirus-based sickness, which is pretty much the cold of the flu? And again, bear in mind, it does have a 99% survival rate. So do we really need vaccinations for this? I'm pretty sure if there's a 99% chance that I wasn't going to get a girl pregnant, I don't think I'd be wearing a condom. But I do get a little bit digressive once again in a little post I like to put up to earlier. And this is a little bit of point of reference that I'm sort of going with this. The men who wear masks in their cars when they are on their own, do they wear a condom when they jerk off to stop themselves from getting sexually transmitted disease? Same principles, same theories apply there. As ridiculous as it would be to consider wearing a condom to prevent yourself from STDs when you are self-gratifying yourself and there's nobody else there would be considered rather foolish. So when you have a virus with a 99% survival rate, do you really need to be lining up like Soviet Russians waiting for bread from the state handouts for vaccines that may contain dangerous nanoparticles that could alter our personas electronically without the need to wire us up to mind control device or nanodes or diodes in order to contract the contact. Now another thing, I don't think she here is at the moment. Oh, we're never PG-13 here at Reality Decoded, Annie, although by today's standards that would probably be considered PG-13. And is 13 the new age of consent? That's something we might be looking at in the not so distant future. And are they trying to make children more adult as we head towards what could be Logan's Run society that might follow on not too long after Soylent Green? But yeah, we're not exactly that PG-13. Sometimes we almost borderline on adult entertainment, the sort of XXX stuff you wouldn't want to get caught searching for. But guys, your artificial intelligent buddy that resides within your phone, he knows exactly what you're looking for. Every given search engine, any given platform, all of this information is actually transmitted and stored on your keyboard app. It doesn't really matter what platform you go to, how censored they are, how not censored they are. The keyboard will track you wherever you go, and that is the information that will then be retained within the artificial intelligent algorithm and will be used to target us. And it will be specifically used to target either advertising or propaganda of manipulation. Share if you agree culture is, in my opinion, don't necessarily say you have to share and agree that opinion, but sharing and agree society is something that we are very, very evidently living in. Whenever I look on the news feed, it is almost impossible to navigate without seeing a meme that is asking you to share and agree. Now what this is thought implementation, or implantation rather. So you might necessarily never have had the thought until it popped up on your news screen, and then all of a sudden you see that it's got lots of reactions and thumbs up and smiley faces and the care emoji, and it's been shared multiple times. That will trigger subliminally the dopamine effect in you, like your subliminal, oh my goodness, if I share this I'm going to get lots and lots of dopamine in return, and then you share and agree with it. The thought wasn't necessarily yours to start with, but it now becomes your thought because you shared and agreed with it. And maybe, when people question or don't share and agree with that, you might use that share and agreed thought as your argument as to why you shared and agreed it. But this is, for me, how they are creating somewhat a hive mind. Not only that, I believe it's a little similar to sort of, something I've mentioned from Star Wars, the clones and the droids from the prequel movies. The clones were pre-programmed and they had all the executive orders implanted into them in a chip in their mind before they even were sort of mature enough to crawl and burp. But they were pre-programmed with thoughts, directives, and executive orders, one of which was Executive Order 66, in which they turned upon the Jedi and just slaughtered them without a second question. And with regards to the droid army, they were controlled by one centralized computer unit. If you took the centralized computer unit out, then you took out all the droids. They stopped functioning, they weren't able to think, and they kind of operated a little bit on a hive mind system. And is that what we are being created and turned into ourselves as human beings, clones and droids that are just battling out on social media? And the reason I mentioned the mask is this is an example. We have many people who think we should, without a second thought, wear a mask at all given times. In what part of stay the fuck home don't we understand? Whereas we have on the opposite side of that argument people that are, why are you wearing a mask? Go out, social gatherings, get and do all the things you normally would. And I do tend to agree. We should be able to carry on and live our lives without being dictated to by corporate dictators in the form of the World Health Organization, the CDC. All of these are private enterprises. They are nothing necessarily to do with the government, but these are the people that are dictating to the governments what bylaws they should put in place and what measures we should have in order to cover us from the COVID pandemic and keep us safe and secure, which was exactly what Emperor Palpatine had said was the purpose of the One Galactic Empire, to keep the galaxy a safe and secure society. Welcome, Marduk. Glad to see you sneaking in there. Also pleasure to see you, my friend. We might have a number two. We did. Excuse me, I need to take on a little bit of liquid. Fried chicken does dry you out. But these are all things that I have been trying to sort of decode, piece the pictures together, join the dots, and try and understand exactly what is going on behind the smoke screen of COVID-19. And there are many sort of tyrannical things that seem to be happening. You know, there's talks of vaccination passports, FEMA rolling in to all, you know, large major cities into 11 states in the United States. At the minute, there are vaccination sites in gotta wet that whistle. Indeed you do, Kelly Kibo. But are they putting into place the things they need for total control in a not so distant future? And is this why we're kind of all being forced to go and get vaccines and be vaccinated in order to deploy the nanotechnology that they can use to control us? And as I said, something I think I sort of started and forgot to finish off of, you know, in recent weeks and months, I certainly have experienced some symptoms that when I've looked at the sensitivity to electromagnetic frequencies, pretty much exactly the same. I'll get a lot of headaches, primarily in the left side of my head, and sometimes feel like my left side of my head is gonna explode. I'm also getting like very bad congestion pains here in sort of at the top of my nose where I can't breathe, and I'm kind of struggling for breath. And this is all very much late at night, after you know, sort of midnight, 1 a.m. I can almost sort of click the watch and okay, I'm gonna have a congestion pains in the moment. I've also experienced some palpitations, sort of kind of some twitching, and more often than not I am shaking. But you know, I've got a lot of sort of other stuff going on that could be a counter factor in those symptoms, but they are all symptoms that can be assigned to electromagnetic sensitivity, which are also very similar to the symptoms that are telling us are associated to COVID-19. And although she isn't here, little Darcy sings a lot wherever she may be. She mentioned that a couple of days ago, or a couple of streams ago, that prior to coming and joining us here in the chat, that she had to wake her husband up, and he was very sweaty. And something I've been doing a lot recently, as well as feeling some of these strange and bizarre symptoms, is I'm sweating a lot. It's winter here in Canada. It hasn't really rose over 0 degrees for quite some time, although the last couple of days have been a little Canadian spring-like, although I'm not going to get too carried away and think spring is coming early. But, you know, it's not like it's the heat of summer. It's not humid. It's not 30 plus degrees outside. You know, it's not sweltering hot. We don't need air conditioning. So, you know, in the midst of winter, living in a sort of uninsulated basement, it's very sort of strange to me that I am sweating, although, you know, I do sort of have to wear a little bit warmer clothes in these times, and sometimes do have a space heater on, which might be it. But I'm more sort of feeling a little bit clammy and a little bit kind of moist under the armpits. Yeah, yes, Marda, indeed. We've got some very, as I said, prestigious and illustrious, and somebody I actually look up to a little bit, and is somewhat of a secret influence to me. I'm not fanboying at all then, and that is in, I can't say professional appreciation, but somebody obviously that has paid a little bit of an influence in my proceedings. But I do, as I said, got a 2-hour, or I don't think I have told you, but I do got around about a 2-hour presentation for you tonight, where we are following on a little bit from where 1985 Decoded left off, and looking at some information stroke evidence to show you that all the technology that they need to control our minds exists. All the technology that they need to control our minds we carry around with us. So up to you if you make, for you to make of it what you will, but the evidence is here, it's in front of you, or information, up to you, as I said, if you consider evidence, but it is a little bit of a stark and disturbing revelation. There might be some cognitive dissonance among it all that might not want to admit that maybe there is a very strong likelihood that we are under a degree of mind control. Some of us may be more subjected to it than others, and we've also looked at the sort of possibilities that maybe certain social media apps might transmit certain frequencies, or they might deliver certain programmatics. We sort of, for example, suggested that maybe if you, I'm not saying it is, but maybe if you use Twitter more, you might be more inclined to be somewhat of a Trumpist, and maybe if you kind of use Facebook more, you might be tends to be more of a Bidenist, and maybe if you use Instagram, you might be somebody that thinks we need to wear masks more. And can these social media sites be tools and weapons and devices of mind control that, once you're sort of on there, give it your information, they can then run it then and then target you with your own personal and specific mind control. So as I said, guys, we do got around 2 hours to look at tonight at some relevant articles and information. So if you are all in place, comfortable, got all your snacks and treats and drinks, and you've gone and used the restroom, then get yourself comfortable and get ready to absorb some information. So let me just turn off the camera, and I will now turn off the mic as we hand over to tonight's feature presentation that is pre-recorded, and I'm going to come and hang out with you guys in the chat. What is up, guys, and welcome to this feature presentation, Mind Wars, part of Reality Decoded's live stream presentation. And we're going to start out off the bat by looking at mind control is real, and there is a United States patent 6506148B2. And I will just point out at this point, before we go any further, that B2 in gematria 2 would also be the equivalent value of B, and that would be B2 would be BB, blue beam. Also, not only the design and the plans to use holographic technology, but electromagnetic and psychotronic weaponry against the masses. So let's go a little further on and dive into this article, because I have spoken greatly and extensively on TSP TV about Project Bluebeam. So US patent 6506148B2 confirms human nervous systems can be manipulated through electromagnetic fields from monitors. And there is a little picture. I don't know what's going on there, but a crowd of people looking at a monitor. Maybe they're looking at a television screen. But the subject of mind control has been keenly contested for some time now, and it is something I've also spent an awful lot of time researching and looking into and trying to present the information, some of my findings, to those of you that do watch and pay attention to my uploads. But mind or thought control is broadly defined as human subjects being indoctrinated in a way that causes an impairment of autonomy, the liability to think independently, and a disruption of beliefs and affiliations. Mind control was initially considered a mere conspiracy theory during the early days of the term. Its adherents believed that a human's mind could be controlled through the dissemination of propaganda messages. Memes, share if you agree. Something again spoken many, many times again. These are a form of mind control, and they are also a form to spread propaganda. But don't take my word of it for it. Make of it what you will in regards to the share and agree culture that is what I believe ways in methodology or modern methodology of controlling and manipulating the minds of the masses via your cellular device and your social media news feed. Sorry, I'm having a bit difficulty navigating the screen here. But the human mind could be controlled through a dissemination of a propaganda messages to suit the person. Disseminated, oh goodness, that's an awful word for me to say, but you can read it for yourself. The person receiving the message. So basically, something I have mentioned and we're going to look at a little bit further in this presentation is the fact that your mobile phone, your cellular device, is in fact a mind control psychotronic weapon, and it does contain an artificial intelligent MK Ultra monarch programmer handler, if you will, of your own personal design, that you give all your information, data, personal feelings, all of that you give to it to analyze, run through its algorithm, and target the designed mind control medium of targeted choice. And we will look a little bit into targeting individuals as well before this is over. But there's a picture of a boy looking through the lens of his camera with one eye. Don't know what that is. Oh, there it is. A boy describes his first kiss in a funny video. I'm sure it's not funny at all. But even media theories such as agenda setting, farming, and priming supported the notion that the human mind could be controlled to think in a certain direction the media wanted, just like we're being forced in the direction of media orientated propaganda at the moment concerning COVID-19, and that just doesn't, that is one example where the propaganda in directing the minds to think how they will would be sort of maybe election campaigns, sporting teams, maybe, I don't know. But you can pretty much, whatever you want to sort of direct the mind towards thinking, you can do so through any of these methods we are going to be looking at in this presentation, and it does get scarier before the end, guys. This, in theory, becomes possible through the messages in the media disseminate to the public. As the media constantly bombarded people with a specific message or idea over time, people become addicted to it, adopting it as reality. Something also I've mentioned about that we are living in an augmented reality where through the media and these techniques of mind control are being used, and the fact that propaganda is now legalized and has been for quite some years and was legalized under the Obama administration. Poor old Donald Trump, like him or loathe him, didn't do anything to remove that in his period of time as the POTUS, as we are now calling the President of the United States. Again, there's a little bit of an example of manipulating the minds and changing the way we communicate. Once upon a time, we called him the President. Now he has to be referred to as the POTUS, and his good dear wife is the FOTUS, or whatever it is. But anyway, that's a little example of how the media can manipulate the minds and adopt new methodologies and memetics to society. But of course, this happens, it means the thinking faculties of people have been altered. And share if you agree, if you think that your mind has been altered by giving a programmatic propaganda call to respond meme on your social media feed. But however, mind control moved from mere communication messages of the media to something deeper after a shocking revelation in 1999. The forensic psychologist Dick Anthony, yes, I said Dick for those of you with that sense of mind, revealed that the United States Central Intelligence Agency invented damning brainwashing techniques against communism during the Korean War. Anthony's revelation had led to further scrutiny of the CIA, and it later emerged that the United States government had been experimenting on how to control the human mind immediately after the end of the Second World War, and they did so with the aid of some nationalist socialist scientists that defected and came to America under Operation Paperclip. But in 1945, the government secretly recruited, as I was just saying, who have been identified and prosecuted as war criminals during the Nuremberg trials. And this recruitment was, as we just mentioned, called Paperclip. You should be aware of Paperclip if you are a truth or conspiracy type person. Certainly, if you've paid any attention to any of my previous uploads on TSP TV, we've mentioned Paperclip before. But the objective of Paperclip was to tap into the knowledge of these Nazi war criminal scientists, and the Nazis were told that if they would agree to work for the United States government, the government would protect them from prosecution. The Nazis agreed rather than being sent to the gallows. And I'm pretty sure we'd all share and agree with those terms and conditions to avoid the gallows. And maybe 1% were brave enough not to share and agree with those terms and conditions. But after recruiting them, the US government used these Nazi scientists in many highly clandestine experiments. Some of those clandestine experiments were carried out at the Montauk facility, another project, another program we in some information we looked at over at TSP TV was Camp David. Was it Camp Freedom? I can't remember. But the goings on at the Montauk facility, looking into mind control as well as interdimensional portal opening, and was Montauk project the fuel. And we looked at the fact that not it was, but it is the fuel for the popularized science fiction series Stranger Things. But with the help of these Nazis in the 50s, the CIA and the Defense Department conducted secret research codenamed MK Ultra. The project was later named Project Artichoke, and the purpose was to study mind control, interrogation, behavior modification, and related topics. And just bear in mind, in the last year, under the COVIDian era that we now live in, behavior modification has seen people social distancing and wearing masks and sharing and agreeing with memes on an alarming rate. And there's a nice little graphic there of some blue beams being implanted into the mind of a graphical human being. But when these secrets were made public, the CIA never contested them, except to say it discontinued the programs. But the big question is here, can we trust the CIA? I certainly wouldn't. Share if you agree, if you don't trust the CIA. But what if they succeeded inventing a technology to control the human mind with which we were unaware of? In 2013, the BBC published an article titled "We Are Close to Making Human Mind Control a Reality," which pretty much would go to strongly suggest that they've already been making human mind control possible for some years to come. And when they make it an announcement that it could be a reality, they're just making us aware and used to the idea that it might be a possibility, when in actual fact it is a reality. But in the article, it was said that Rajesh Roa, double R there, a researcher at the University of Washington, had succeeded in playing a computer game with his mind without using any physical controllers. Mr. Roa's invention convinced many researchers that mind control is no longer a conspiracy theory and that it is real. And some researchers expressed grave concerns about the invention of Roa, saying it could lead to a zombie apocalypse. Something very, very prominent works of fiction and that has been popularized on mainstream entertainment and movies in the 21st century was the relaunch and the rebooting of zombie apocalypse themed genre horror movies and science fiction series, most notably The Walking Dead. Been running for something like 10-11 years now and has several spin-off shows, and also Sci-Fi Channel has its own version called Z Nation. There's also been, quite a few zombie movies. World War Z, there was the one, I can't remember what it's called now, Zombieland, with Woody Harrelson and that other kind of geeky looking dude, or I can't remember his name, modern actor, but it has been popularized. The zombie apocalypse is here, and it was never more evident than during the Pokemon Go craze, that people could be turned into zombies using augmented reality, chasing around pixelated creatures, and how their cellular devices can not only be used as mind control devices, they can also be used as digital shepherds, herding humans in the human farm. But here's a little quote: when we have full tanks into the brain directly, and you can control someone like a robot, just as we described in Pokemon Go, then we might have problems, said Dr. Ian Pearson, a futurologist with a background in science and engineering. And I do believe wholeheartedly that Pokemon Go was a very large experimentation in human farming and controlling the mind of the masses using cellular technology. To further prove to you without any ambiguity that mind control is real and that technology to do the highly immoral, unethical, and corrupt job is available, we look at something we have chanced upon on the internet. And there's some digital graphics again, very blue beamy, of something, someone searching on the internet. We come across a scientific research published on the internet with the patent number US 6506148B2. It is titled Nervous Systems Manipulation by Electromagnetic Fields from Monitors. The abstract of the work reads, physiological effects have been observed in a human subject in response to simulation of the skin with weak electromagnetic fields that are pulsed with a certain frequency near 1/2 hertz or 2.4 hertz, such as to excite a sensory resonance. Something also that is very, very popular in recent times is ASMR, which autonomous muscle sensory response is what ASMR stands for. And again, it is getting used to the body reacting to an artificial stimulant. Is relaxing in calming as ASMR videos are, and is enjoyable as the tingles are. They are actually being used to normalize human beings being stimulated by, as I said, artificial sources rather than physical sources. But many computer monitors and TV tubes, when displaying pulsed images, emit pulsed electromagnetic fields of sufficient amplitudes to cause such excitation. It is therefore possible to manipulate the nervous system of a subject by pulsing images displayed on a nearby computer, monitor, or TV set, or in this modern day and age, a social media news feed, guys. The images that are used for memetics in what the whatever the message of the meme is used are very important. Something again we've looked at on TSP TV, as we have researched and try to inform you as much as you can while providing as much information and evidence that this technology exists, and it can well be a very, very strong likelihood that it is being used against mankind as we speak, and maybe even be used as we are watching this. But for the latter, the image pulsing may be embedded in the program material, or it may be overlaid by modulating a video stream either as an RF signal or as a video signal. The image displayed on a computer monitor may be pulsed effectively by a simple computer program. And again, something we all seem to do is scroll on our phones. We just get on our newsfeed and we scroll up, 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 and thus the pictures that we see on the newsfeed will be pulsating into our minds. So again, these memes are things that we see each and every day on our social media feeds, and as we are scrolling up and down, these images and these messages are being pulsated into the subliminal part of our mind, guys. But anyway, for certain monitors, pulsed electromagnetic fields capable of exciting sensory resonances in nearby subjects may be generated even as the displayed images are pulsed with subliminal intensity. exactly what I just said to you guys. So your uncle TSP isn't a fool. He may be a tinfoil hat wearing dude in his basement, but he's bringing you some facts, people, and information to support my theories as factual. But according to the publication on Google, Hendrikus G. Luz is the owner of the work. He filed the work in June 2001, months before the events of a certain September Tuesday that I believe also was the precursor to a possible larger scale Project Bluebeam, where they're using electromagnetics, where they're using directed energy weaponry, and where they're using holographic aircraft to deceive the masses into believing that radicalized Islamic hijackers with box cutters and limited flight knowledge managed to overpower, take control of, and carry out a targeted suicide attack on large buildings using commercial jetliners and performing beyond the jetliners' physical possibilities and capabilities, hit their targets with a 75% success rate on that day. But anyway, sorry to digress a little bit there, but the owner of the work, he filed it in 2001, but was published in 2003. When we attempted to find more details on Mr. Luz, we realized he isn't a popular on the internet and isn't even mentioned in Wikipedia. Wonder why that is, guys. Removal of information is how they stop you finding the information, and also programming people to maybe not have an attention span long enough to retain or read information of their own might also be a way of removing information from society, which is why I try my utmost to provide as much information as I possibly can to support my theories, thoughts, and opinions for you guys to make of what you will. Not telling you to believe it, guys, but when the evidence is there before your eyes, maybe a little bit of cognitive dissonance sets in, and maybe you don't want to believe the truth and you want to believe the lie that becomes your own truth if you believe it. But we did find, however, his work on the manipulation of the nervous system with electronic devices started back in 1978, publishing 9 works since. Now, to put the work in a simple context, let's consider a simple definition of the nervous system. According to neuroscientists, the human nervous system controls everything from breathing and producing digestive enzymes to memory and intelligence. In fact, the central part of the nervous system is the brain. If patent number 6506148B2 says the nervous system can be manipulated by electromagnetic fields from monitors, need we not tell you that your mind is being manipulated with monitors, and we are never really too far or too long without a monitor of our own personal design and programming in the palm of our hands. And there's a picture of a monitor controlling the minds of the masses. And something also we tend to do with our devices is plug in our headphones or earbuds and submerge ourselves in a field of electromagnetic and radio frequency waves. But especially televisions, they have become deadly weapons to us. From the recent WikiLeaks Vault 7 disclosure, it emerged how the CIA used Samsung smart TVs to spy on people. Samsung smart TVs, and surveillance or self monitoring advanced research technology is the acronym for SMART. It was once militarized technology that used to give an advance over the Allies on their enemies. But from all indications, the United States government has a secret technology. The secret technologies are increasingly becoming embedded in most of the technology we use every day, which is what I've been telling you for many months now, guys, that your little personal MK Ultra handler is in fact your cellular device that you use each and every day and probably deal with more than you or interact with rather more than you interact with human beings, and especially under the COVIDian era and draconian measures implanted under bylaws to keep us safe from a disease with a 99% survival rate, more and more people have been subjected to social networking via social media rather than social networking with actual real life people. But this helps the United States government to maintain its, I can't read that word, hegemony over every being on this planet. The secret knowledge the Nazis had under Adolf Hitler is now in the hands of the United States and is being put to use. Our goal and my goal is to raise awareness. When we investigate in this issue, somebody told us it's time to get rid of our TV sets, one person said. The evidence is overwhelming. Truly, we are shocked by the available evidence. One important question we should be asking now is, why is the mainstream media still silent on this issue? This tells you that the end goal of the media is never to educate and raise awareness. It is created and controlled by the elite to put us in the dark so they continue to profit from the controlling of us. If the news media channel didn't tell you things, who would? Why the government, of course. Would I lie to you? As a cartoon depiction of Uncle Sam there. But there are people like myself that are trying to tell you these things that exist and provide you the evidence of their existence, and also provide you the information to lead you to the evidence of their existence. It's not just for me to tell you. Do please be encouraged to take up the research and look into these subjects for yourself. And I'd love for you guys to start sharing with me some of the research that you do find out on some of these subjects I try to bring you as part of these reality decoded live stream presentations. But from now on, never dismiss any conspiracy theory. And I've told you this, it is only by observing the greater picture can we then have a greater understanding to what the picture is actually telling us. And take your time to read about it, the theory, and to do a little research about it, just as I have, although I've done a lot of extensive research. You don't have to go to that level of ADHD, OCD levels of research, but do a little bit of labeling. Maybe next time you go and take a dump, rather than sharing and agreeing some memes you see on your social media until the defecation is complete, then maybe you could do a little bit of reading on mind control while you're there. And here we are, see also another article there. Can human beings be manipulated by ELF waves? So let's just roll back up a little bit and see if we can find it here. This is the one I think we wanted to click on. Nervous system manipulation. Here we are at Google patients by electromagnetic fields from monitors. And the abstract: psychological effects have been observed in the human subject in response to simulation of the skin with weak electromagnetic fields that are pulsed within certain frequencies near half a hertz or 2.4 hertz, such as to excite a sensory resonance. Many computer monitors and TV tubes, when displaying pulsed images, emit pulsed electromagnetic fields or a sufficient amplitudes to cause such excitation. It is therefore possible to manipulate the nervous system of a subject by pulsing images displayed. And there is the inventor there, and there is much more for you to read. For the latter, the image pulsing may be embedded in the program material, or it may be overlaid by modulating a video stream, either as RF signal or as a video signal. Now, we have read this before, but the image displayed on the computer may be pulsed effectively by a simple computer program, and maybe that simple computer program is the artificially intelligent algorithm that resides in your cellular device, and due to the fact that you give it all your personal information, can design and target what material it wants you to see in order to control and manipulate your mind. And there are, as I said, the application there, the events application was filed, priority publication. And there are some images of the monitor and an individual receiving the pulsating electromagnetic imagery. The invention relates to the stimulation of the human nervous system by an electromagnetic field externally to the body. A neurological effect of external electric fields has been mentioned by Werner in 1958 in a discussion of the bunching of brainwaves through non-linear interactions. The electric field was arranged to provide a direct electrical driving of the brain. Werner describes the field as set up to 10 Hz, altering voltage of 400 volts, applied in a room between a ceiling and ground. Brennan in 1992 describes in US patent number 5169380 an apparatus for alleviating disruptions in a circadian rhythms of a mammal, humans are mammals, remember that, in which an altering electric field is applied across the head of the subject by two electrodes, very, very similar to headphones or earbuds placed in short distance from the skin. In these effects, like headphones, are in direct contact with the skin. A device involving a field electrode as well as a contact electrode is the Graham potentializer, mentioned by Hutchinson in 1991. This relaxation device, excuse me, there my eyes are getting a bit squinty, uses motion, light, and sound, as well as altering electric fields applied mainly to the head. The contact electrode is a metal bar of ophthalmic contact with the bare feet of the subject, and the field electrode is a hemispherical metal headpiece placed several inches from the subject's head. Remember back in the 1980s, the Walkman and those little steel foam padded headphones that we used to wear around our necks or on our head almost at any given time back in the 80s, when we used to listen to tapes that had the Dolby Digital sound system as part of our electromagnetic psychotronic weapons that we carried around and wore on our body at the time. But in these electric stimulation methods, the external electric field is applied predominantly to the head so that electric currents are induced in the brain. If something you have to bear in mind also, that at the base of most cellular devices is the socket that you plug your phone into to charge it up, and it is usually the area that is kind of connected closely to the palm of your hand. And why we are also holding it in our hand, we usually connect via our thumbs or fingers to scroll the screens. Is this in fact creating a diode of sort that can conduct or transmit the field of electromagneticity into our skin? But certain continuous receptors may then be stimulating. This is what I'm talking about, that we're continuously recepting the stimulations by using our thumb up and down. Would provide a signal input into the brain, allowing the natural pathways of a afferent nerve. It has been found that indeed sociological effects can be induced in this manner by very weak electromagnetic fields that may be coming out of the base of our cellular device's charging socket. If they are pulsed with a frequency, and believe it or not, guys, I've actually held my cellular device and sort of do feel a little bit of a tingle coming from the socket, and maybe that might be something you might want to experiment with now. Put your cellular device or the socket that you charge your phone with very close to the palm of your skin and see if or not you can feel any pulsating. Something to be a little bit alarmed about is many toddlers and children are given tablets as babysitters now, and usually kind of hold them in their laps or are placed in their laps, where the electromagnetic signals could be transmitted directly into an undeveloped reproductive system of either boys and girls. But the observed effects include ptosis of the eyelids, relaxation, drowsiness, The feeling of pressure at the center spot on the lower edge of the brow, seeing moving patterns of dark, and this is interesting, purple and greenish yellow. Something we're seeing a lot on social media is purple, guys, and we're also seeing it in the skies above. Lots of purple sunsets in the skies over Toronto over the last few months. And again, go check out Purple Haze up in my brain special presentation we had on TSP TV not that long ago, where we were looking at the significance of purple and why we are seeing it so much. So is this why we are seeing so many purple themed memetics on social media? Is this why we're seeing so many purple themed movie posters? Is this why TV seem, news, mainstream entertainment news broadcasts seem to also have a lot of purple? Is this why Joe Biden and the rest of the Illuminati all wore purple on the inauguration day? But as I said, back to the article, with the eyelids closed, a tonic smile or a tense feeling in the sudden loose stool and sexual excitement. And again, maybe if you look at certain websites of adult entertainment, you may be stimulated a little bit. It may be something I've suggested before. There are certain social media platforms, actually devices of mind control that emit different frequencies that will program, a little bit like Brave New World, the alphas, the betas, the deltas, and the omegas. But it has been found that resonance can be excited not only by externally applied pulse electrofields, as discussed in US patent numbers 5782874, and a whole bunch other there that you can read for yourself. We're not going to go and read them all. As you can see, guys, there are United States patents for all of these technologies to be used as mind control devices that can use electromagnetic and radio frequencies as the delivery system of that mind control. But the weak heat pulses applied to the skin, just like I mentioned, coming out of the socket of your charger port, could be described as in US patent number 6017302. Since the resonance is excited through sensory pathways, it's called a sensory resonance. In addition to the resonance near half a hertz, the sensory resonance has been found near 2.4 hertz. The latter is characterized by the slowing of certain cortical processes, as discussed in 481, 922, 302, 744, 944, and 304 patents. Patents, guys. If ever you have a theory or query that something exists, go and check up the patents. But this is extremely long, guys, so we're not going to read it all, but I will scroll down to the bottom if at any given time you want to come back and read all of this. But this is the pattern that was filed back in 1991 that does give us the evidence that quite possibly, and as I said, we're not even a quarter of a way down this. So as I said, guys, I just wanted to introduce a little bit to you. You should know the patent number of it by now. Before we go away, let's just look one more time. US 6506148B2. If you want to know more about it for yourself, go and look that up. And as you can see here, Google patents is where you will be able to find it. So now that we have concluded that little part of the presentation, let's go and have a little look at is the possibility, probability, likelihood that your cellular device, your cell phone, is in fact a psychotronic weapon that is using all your information as a weapon against you. Stay tuned, guys. We'll be back in just a short second or So welcome back, and here we are. There's a nice little graphic of a human mind and the brain linked up to a cellular device, and the article is titled, "Is Your Cell Phone a Psychotronic Weapon of Mass Mind Control?" And this is from Salacious News, or Saglacious, and come out on October the 6th, 2018. But Peter A. Kirby, modern telecommunication usually involves devices that can both send and receive wireless signals. These devices are also almost invariably capable of producing and receiving signals that affect our moods, thoughts, and bodily functions. Your cell phone is a psychotronic weapon. That means that your cell phone can read and control, and probably is reading and controlling your mind. People should care more about that than what um, than whoever is currently on TV. But most of the field, oh my goodness, excuse me there. And again, most of the fields of man-made electromagnetic energy we experience on a routine daily basis are byproducts of modern industry. Electric power grids, telecommunications, and electrically powered devices produce them, as generally opposed to the naturally occurring fields of the Earth's magnetic energy. What is it? The Schumann resonance, I think. Dear old Becky P. and our dear friend Annie Bedell over at Prepper Chicks. This is something they have mentioned, and we may or may not be seeing Annie in our future panel presentation that I'm working on for Reality Decoded that you may see next week. But anyway, where were we? The Earth's magnetic energy. Sorry about that, I got a little bit distracted. But man-made fields of electromagnetic energy have been found to be generally bad for humans. Preponderance of the best evidence suggests that they can cause cancer. If this wasn't bad enough for city dwellers, electromagnetic energy can also be weaponized and may be used against us routinely. The scholarly article explores the notion that psychotronic weaponry is being used from near and afar to mind control us on a daily routine basis. And this article gives a background to the field of psychotronic weaponry. It explores the current state of the art and provides the author's accounts of his experiences with weaponized electromagnetic energy. Evidence suggests, get the fuck out of here with Amazon. Evidence suggests that these mind control activities are part of a larger effort the author calls the New Manhattan Project. We will look at the New Manhattan Project in the future. But the author became aware of this psychotronic weaponry during the course of his research into this related article. And if you're not familiar with the New Manhattan Project, please refer to the author's books Chemtrails Exposed, a New Manhattan Project. We may look at this, as I said, in a future episode, but now to keep things on track and try and keep it within a desired time frame, let's get back to this article. A little teaser there for you, perhaps, of what is to come. But psychotronic weaponry, electromagnetic energy can be produced and directed to influence human moods, thoughts, and bodily functions. Devices that do this are known as psychotronic weaponry or psychotronics. Psychotronic weaponry utilizes electromagnetic energy frequencies primarily in the extremely low frequency range and 3.3 to 30 hertz range, because ELF is primarily the frequency range of the electromagnetic energy. The human brain naturally sends and receives electromagnetic fields in the very low frequency VLF stroke 3 to 30 kHz. Notice we've got 33 going on there, guys. And a super low frequency of SLF slash 30 to 300. And again, 33 ranges can also be, they can also have psychotronic effects. So any frequencies between those those hertz, the parameters of those hertz there, will be able to use as psychotronic weapons against us. Man-made electromagnetic energy, EM signals produced and applied in the ELF range can be synchronized to human brainwaves. And a little bit of what I suggested last year here in Toronto, we started seeing these social circles that you could go out, and as long as you had like 6 friends and you were willing to sit in these circles, you were able to sort of have a little bit of social interaction outside the social distancing agenda. Bylaws. But once you are within that little circle, your devices can sync up, and they can then use their artificially intelligent algorithms to sync the programming that you may start to see on your social media feeds. But as I said, they can be synchronized to human brain waves so that the brain comes entrained. And this is what I'm saying, that once you're in your little social circle of 6, and we've heard about the 6 degrees of separation, you can target those 6 individuals with propaganda that they will then possibly go on to share and agree with, and then their friends will see it, some of them will share, agree with it, and thus it spreads, guys. This is the true danger and purpose behind share and you agree culture, is trying to create hive minds, and is definitely, in my opinion, being a form of mind manipulation weaponry. But where are we? The brain becomes entrained, and the targeted individual's brainwaves are first scanned to determine the frequency of the EM his or her brain is currently producing. Then that same frequency produced by the targeted individual's brain is produced by a psychotronic weapon and directed at the targeted individual. Once the targeted individual's brain waves have been synchronized with the EM produced by the psychotronic weapon, the frequency produced by the weapon is then gradually altered. Due to this synchronization, as the EM produced by the psychotronic weapon is gradually altered to produce any desired effects, the targeted individual's brain waves will follow. This is the process of brain entrainment, which is fundamental to psychotronic weaponry. Don't believe me, and you don't believe me, then this is me talking, me, not me reading the author's quotation there. But there is a mounting of supporting evidence in this investigation that has found hundreds of pertinent documents readily available. The Navy, the Rand Corporation, remember the Rand Corporation? We looked at those during the Tavistock touch as the the jewel in the crown of the Tavistock network, as also are NASA, part of the Tavistock Institute network of institutes that are used for the mass manipulation purposes. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Lincoln Laboratory, and again the MIT. Guess what, guys? It has the Tavistock touch on it. Lawrence Livermore National Labs, the Department of Energy, again the Department of Energy, Tavistock. The Battle Pacific Northwest Labs, and many others have all been doing significant work here. All of those names are involved in the New Manhattan Project. The more general area of study is known as bioelectromagnetics, and that is the title of a leading scientific journal. If you want to look into it further, a good place to start is the mind control section of the author's previous article, Other New Manhattan Chemtrail Project Agendas. Remember that if you want to do a little bit of research into that. But as I said, we may be looking at the New Manhattan Project in the not so distant future. Share if you agree that you want to see some stuff on the New Manhattan project in the comments below right now. And maybe if you want to use your favorite emoji to do so, go ahead, knock yourself out. I'll let you this one emojical response. But your author has since uncovered much more. This section provides an overview of the author's previously published work pertaining to mind control and the New Manhattan Project, as well as newly uncovered information 3 earlier scientists presented that all have strong connections to the New Manhattan Project. But way back in the 1930s, Alfred Lee Loomis, 1887 to 1975, was studying and writing about brainwaves as he helped to develop the field of that's a big word for me to read, you read it for yourself, which is the field of brainwave measurements. This was the same Alfred Lee Loomis who made his fortune in electrical power industry and later went on to help develop technologies capable of bouncing electromagnetic communication signals off the ionosphere, transmitting them over thousands of miles. These facts are significant because America's electrical power grid produces EM fields in the same frequency range as that of the human brain. And the electrical power industry has incentives such as the generation of hydroelectric power to motivate their interest in global weather modification endeavor. Just last week, Texas had an example of what could be considered weather manipulation. During that weather manipulation, the power grid went down. But anyway, the weather modification is also tied with the new Manhattan Project. Also, today's new Manhattan Project chemtrail spray has been found to be coal fly ash. The coal fly ash is a byproduct of the electrical power industry's coal-fired power plants. As of that wasn't enough, today's ionospheric heaters of the new Manhattan Project with fundamental technologies developed by Luminous are capable of producing tremendously strong EM signals and fields that can control the weather and influence our moods. I'm always affected by shitty weather, and in particular winter. I sometimes get not necessarily suicidal, but I'd rather not wake up tomorrow than face -40 snow and ice again. Seasonal affective disorder is something that lots of people suffer from, and is this the product of psychotronic weaponry, or is this just a natural response to shit weather? But back in colonial times, when the pioneers first arrived on the shores of North America, those of them who experienced the bitterness of the northern part of this continent's winter referred to it as winter madness, where they didn't get enough sunlight and they were tired of constantly being cold. But it can, as we just said, influence our moods, thoughts, and bodily functions and makes one head spin. For more about the enigmatic Mr. Luminous, please refer to Chemtrails Exposed, another new Manhattan Project link there. For more about the electrical power industry's potential motives, please return to yet another new Manhattan Chemtrail Project. So let's just skip down past the links to new Manhattan Project articles. For more about the ionospheric heaters of today's thing, look at the smoking gun, HARP, and the chemtrails connection. But Luminous work in the field of I can't read it, you read it again, involved electrical diodes placed directly on the subject's skin. So although his work is notable here as a precursor, it was also a little bit different than modern psychotronics, in that modern psychotronic weaponry is administered remotely through the air. What we are examining here is more akin to the latter field of magnetico. That word I can't read. Help me out, guys. Although what appears to be the earliest scientific paper applicable to modern psychotronic weaponry was published in good old 1955. Remember, Back to the Future, and also my science project movies that contained directed energy. It's not directed energy, time travel. Although my science project did have some directed energy and interportal dimension. Also revolved around time travel. But it wasn't until the earliest 60s that things in the field really started getting going. Among a few other early examples was 1961's research in electrical phenomena associated with aerosols by Bernard Vonnegut et al. Goodness, don't know if I read that right. But research in electrical phenomena associated with aerosols involved measuring the effects of the electromagnetic field directed at the effigy of a man. in a small chamber surrounded by gas. This is, of course, analogous to today's everyday environment where aeroplanes saturate our atmosphere with very small particles and man-made electromagnetic energy is hitting us all over the place. The author of the research into electrical phenomena, also, as astute readers know, was instrumental to the early development of what has become today's, once again, New Manhattan Project. He was an original scientist and part of that project, and he was one of the trios of General Electric scientists who rolled out the scientific era of weather modification. And he later went on to do space charge experiments in the vein of the New Manhattan Project. In the most cited weather modification report ever, he wrote about introducing chemicals into the atmosphere or modifying the weather by altering the electrical variables, atmospheric chemicals, and atmospheric electricity are the two key elements of today's New Manhattan Project. On a separate note, he just happened to be Kurt Vonnegut's brother. But back in the 1960s, UCLA's Brain Research Institute was studying the effects of electromagnetic fields on human behavior. This was around the same time that our good friend and eminent geophysicist, Dr. Gordon J.F. How to Wreck the Environment MacDonald, was writing about entertaining and training people's brains with a man-made electronic signal from outer space. Yes, you read that correctly. Just bear in mind also our good old boy Elon Musk, he's sending all sorts of stuff up into space that could be doing who knows what to the minds of the masses. But starting around 1970, academic activity in this area increased greatly. Many more scientific papers began to be published. And in 1974, a book edited by Dr. Michael A. Persinger titled ELF and VLF Electromagnetic Field Effects was published. This book references and details many studies conducted with animals and humans pertaining to sociological and biochemical changes associated with electromagnetic fields in the ELF and VLF ranges. In the preface, Dr. Persinger writes that ELF signals are associated with weather changes, solar disturbances, and geophysical ionospheric perturbations. That is very convenient considering that this New Manhattan Project is primarily a global weather modification project. ELF, VLF, and EM is fundamental to the natural life process here on Earth. Dr. Persinger also writes that ELF signals are preferable because they have the capacity to penetrate structures which house living organisms, and especially when you bring in devices into those structures like a house or a block of condominiums, then you would kind of entrap yourself within those fields. He's writing about weaponized EM like MacDonald did about 10 years earlier. Persinger is writing here about psychotronic weaponry, mind control people in their houses from outer space. Don't need to do it from outer space. They have the device in the palm of their hand to do so. I'm not making this up. I wish I were. I wish I didn't think I could. And I think there is a picture of Dr. Persinger. But in this area of study, it appears that Dr. Persinger has been most instrumental without boring the reader with itinerary of details. It suffices to say that Persinger's work in this area has been both prolific and seminal. Dr. Persinger has been a very public figure for many decades. He just goes on and on all this stuff, on and on all about this stuff. He teaches it. He is most well known for inventing what is called the God helmet. The God helmet was a device placed on a subject's head which could apparently produce in the subject the feeling of having a religious experience. Bear in mind, and just to remind you, Project Bluebeam in its concept was proposed to be used to project a false flag psychological operation, religious rapture of sorts, in which specific denominations of belief systems would see their own specific gods and apocalyptic images as well as voices from their particular god of choice. But a United States patent granted in 1990 called cryogenic remote censoring physiograph details the apparatus and method for remotely scanning people's brainwaves. This is significant because, as noted earlier, the process of brain entrainment begins with remotely reading the brain waves of a targeted individual. And is that what our cellular devices are actually doing, reading our brain waves? Another US patent granted in 1998 titled Thermal Excitation of Sensory Resonance describes a method and apparatus for using directive microwave radiation or laser beam to produce certain effects in humans. The patent explains that the sleepiness, drowsiness, relaxation, a tonic smile, ptosis of the eyelids, the feeling of a knot in the stomach, sudden loose stool, and sexual excitement can all be artificially induced in human beings. Let me just read that again. All of the above things can be artificially induced in humans using this technique. And we use the delivery system of this technique each and every day in our cellular device. I'm using that device right now to record this for your educational and not entertainment, fuck me, opinion. There we go. Sorry, I had a little bit of a brain fart then. Maybe that was my little psychotronic device ordering my capacity of brain function. Although the author has previously written about this in other agendas, it should be noted that here that an experiment in the field of psychotronics has written a book detailing how we can be mind controlled by all internet connected devices. In his 2013 book Mind War, which is the title of tonight's stream, if you haven't noticed, Dr. Michael Aquino writes exactly that. He writes BWR, mind control frequencies, can, for instance, be inserted into the internet to be passively and indetectably received and radiated by an assessing device, from the television station to a desktop computer or a cellular telephone. What I've been telling you guys. But Dr. Michael Aquino should know, although he is now retired, he was a Lieutenant Colonel Psychological Operations 1st Special Forces Regiment US Army personnel member. And there's something, download your first free issue. No, we don't want to download our first free issue. Thank you very much. But the personal experiences of the author says he often found himself staring at a computer or television screen, feeling a little stuck. Maybe you can relate. Sometimes I might find myself in rare occasions, I do spend a little too long on social media news feeds being stuck there. And I sometimes find myself getting stuck on applications looking for maybe some fictional entertainment to pass a few hours while binge watching. But he just came back to the computer to write this passage. This is again the words of the author, not necessarily the words of me. But before that, I was staring at the television screen as the local TV news sportscaster went on about women's college basketball. Something I noticed when I first arrived here in Toronto, and something I actually found myself actually being a little bit subjected to and doing, was we have a channel here called CP24, which is a local news channel. When I first arrived in Toronto, I couldn't sort of believe how many people actually sort of watch this TV station in their households, and how they just kind of left it on constantly, never really changed the channel. And once I sort of got myself in a situation where I had my own sort of apartment and managed to hook up an illegal cable set up for myself, where I received free cable, I found myself tuned in constantly to CP24 and very, very rarely watched anything else. And it was just on in the background. And sometimes I would just stare a little bit at the endless, never, repetitive news broadcasts at the bottom, the ticker as they call it. But as he said, he was watching the local news sportcaster talking about women's college basketball. Excuse me there. Had a little bit of a burp in the pipes that was preventing me from talking fluently there. But as he was standing there watching it, when it occurred to me that I was odd that I would be staring at a report about women's college basketball, because I barely watch sports at all, much less have any interest in a niche like women's college basketball. Might the television be producing electromagnetic frequencies that encourage me to continue watching? Quite possibly. And back in the 1985 reality decoded special presentation we put up recently here, many of you that did tune in found yourself getting a little bit hypnotized by the old school Dolby Digital and VHS effect in the hiss in the background. And even though I had made that video and looked at all the the images and reports and stuff that I put into that many times, and for hours and hours and hours and hours, it took me to put together that presentation, I still found myself drawn in and unable to look away. But can this be done? And it makes sense that this would be done. When more people watch programs for longer periods of times, they make more money. We have seen here the reality of the necessary technologies. And the author goes on to say that he feels a compulsion to grab or hold my smartphone when there's real need to do so. I'm not sure if this is a naturally occurring psychological phenomenon due to our heavy use of smartphones, a little bit muscle memory there, and kind of, the fidget spinner type fad that we had not so long ago. This was sort of something that people would hold and use in a similar way to handling a cellular device, scrolling up and down by spinning round and round, a little fancy gadget that sometimes flashed lights. But it is in the interest of the phone maker, and again, and the telecommunications company, to have their customers feeling as though they really need their phone. And I've had some sort of anxiety issues, when I've left my phone behind, or I've lost my phone, or and I'm sure some of you guys would have experienced similar experiences to that. But that keeps the cash rolling in, and maybe the telecommunications company and or the phone maker is complicit in the production. Of course they are, hand in glove, working together to control the masses while profiting from the mind control of the masses. Are they complicit in the production of EM signals coming out of one's phone that make people feel compelled to have or use a phone? I will go out and say yes, they are. Sometimes I'll be peacefully doing little things around the house, and again, this is the words of the author, not necessarily me, but they are sort of similarities that I can relate to, and some of you may. When I've had negative thoughts and feelings just start appearing in my head for no reason, something I have experienced. I am a relatively happy guy. I'm not very happy. I'm kind of the exact opposite to the author, but most of my needs are met. I'm furiously building and I'm hopeful for the future. My having unprovoked negative thoughts and feelings is illogical. I didn't used to have them, and I find that when these negative thoughts and feelings strike, if I turn off my Wi-Fi and or I put my phone into airplane mode, and then they rapidly disappear. Something I do at night when I do try to go to sleep is turn my cell phones off and pop them into a Mylar bag and seal them up. But might the author goes on to say, purposely being receiving EM through my wireless communication devices that make him think negative thoughts and make him feel bad. I've often thought the same. Am I being, controlled? Are my emotions being controlled? One minute I can be going to do something and then be completely blank, and then out of nowhere I have a sort of a little bit of a rage and the desire to maybe want to go out and cause some physical harm to somebody. Not that I have acted upon those desires or feelings or sensations, but I don't know how much longer is it going to be before they crimson mist us like they did over in Rwanda back in the early 90s, using electromagnetic cytronic weaponry on an unsuspecting population of Rwanda that were a little bit in disarray due to the fact that all their government and heads of state had been killed in a plane crash that could have been clandestinely the result of CIA interactions and interference. But as he go back to the article and say, are these devices making him think negative and feel bad? Are they making you and I feel negative and bad? But with all my public and private rallying against the establishment everywhere, I'm probably not the corporate superstate favorite individual. I'm pretty much... I'm not YouTube's favorite individual, I would imagine, by a long stretch of the imagination. But maybe the author goes on to say, I am sent electromagnetic signals that produce negative thoughts and feelings in me as a form of punishment. Or maybe, as I said, when we look at, how the most prime candidates for MK Ultra Monarch programming are people that have been traumatized or maybe sort of in a state of depression. Is this what the negative thoughts are all about? Getting people more and more depressed, more and more disassociated with their old ways of life, and being removed from society, friends, and family. They are in a lonesome state of electromagnetic subjectivity to electromagnetic persuasions. Lastly, a few weeks ago, the author was he wasn't suffering, he was surfing the internet on his desktop computer when I suddenly began to feel a distinct dryness at the top of my nasal passage. Something I've been experiencing in recent weeks is congestion in the nose, in the top part of my nasal passage between my eyes. He went on to quit his internet browser and stepped away from the computer, and as soon as I did, the dryness in my nasal passage went away. This, for me, is my most convincing episode yet. And again, I've experienced exactly what he's talking about right there for myself, and maybe some of you also do. But I hope these things are the worst it's going to get for me. If they are, then I'm getting off easy. I've heard plenty of super scary horror stories, again, words of the author, not me, from many targeted individuals who claim that their entire lives have been absolutely ruined by harmful electromagnetic frequencies. And in conclusion, the author goes on to say it really is an extension of subliminal advertising. If advertisers do that, then why wouldn't somebody do this? Of course, this is done. It's very important to note, as shown repetitively here, the frequencies used to control the minds and influence bodily functions are the same frequencies that the germane to atmospheric phenomena. These frequencies are also fundamental to what is commonly referred to as the smart grid. The smart grid involves having our fundamental biological process hacked and hijacked. Smart. Self-surveillance, monitoring, advanced research technology. The organization and the people responsible for exploiting these frequencies are tapping into the fundamental process of life itself without our full knowledge and without our consent. That is why this information is so important, and this is why people are so resistant to smart meters and Wi-Fi, which play important roles in the smart grid. As we go through our daily lives here in America and the rest of the world, and in many other parts of the world, as I just said, as a matter of course, we are all assaulted by psychotronic weaponry in one way or another. It is a good way to get people to do what somebody else wants without the targeted individuals knowing what hit them. This shows the cowardice, subversiveness, and lust for power, not of man's nature, but of artificially constructed establishment. The science of mind control lies just outside of the Overton window. The reality of these technologies, although exhaustively documented, is largely unknown in today's society. Why I'm trying to bring this information into highlight for those of you that do watch and pay attention. And again, this is for your own consideration, thought, and opinion as much as it is for educational and informational purposes. Even if you are an average American, even if your average American were to come to grips with the reality of power of these technologies, convincing them that these technologies are being purposely used against us on a routine daily basis will still be a bridge to fucking, I'm not going to say fricking, too fucking far for most people. Simply refuse to believe that monumental institutions of industry, academia, and the government would engage in such malicious and blatant violations of the public's trust. This is how they get away with it. This is the author's frustration. This is my frustration. Maybe it's your frustration too. We will never win the fight if we don't recognize the enemy, the art of war, understanding your enemy. And this is what I've been trying to do, is look beyond the veil of COVID and how COVID is actually being perpetuated, and how the memetics of the propaganda are what are continuing to perpetuate the COVID design. And this is all what I believe big guys in a way to implement further measures of electromagnetic psychotronic warfare upon us. But the author says, I'm betting on humanity. In the face of all the world, I'm betting that we will rise up and root out all of the established weapons used against us, physical and metaphysical. I'm betting on you, the reader. I'm betting on you, the viewer. And I'm betting that a relatively small percentage of intelligent and well-informed individuals will push the envelope and move the Overton window to a size and position that will allow even the lowest common denominators to come with grips with such things as psychotronic weaponry and the new Manhattan Project. We are merging from the cave. In the meantime, the dehumanizing agendas of mind control and chemtrails will continue. This was written before the dehumanizing agenda that is known commonly and contemporarily as COVID-19. This is why we need you, the new media. Please share this article far and wide. Thank you. I've done my part to share his article far and wide. I've added my thoughts and opinions to this article for your information and educational purposes, and it is now up to you if or not you choose to share this any further with your friends and family, or if you want to look further into this for yourself. I'm playing my part. It's up to you to play your part. But anyway, let's finish it there. There's a lot of sort of links and things and stuff that he does go on and on and on that are not really very relevant. And if you want to donate to this individual, you can do so there, just like you can choose to donate to me via the Tips for Reality PayPal link that hopefully maybe a mod will post in the comments for you. Now, bear in mind, this is my day job, guys, and I do get paid through the gratuity of my viewers who feel they might want to tip me for my trouble. But let's go over now and look a little bit at targeted individuals before I show you some scary, scary stuff from back of the day that you may have seen if you tuned in to 1985 Decoded. That comes from CNN and the Discovery Channel, that will give you a little bit more evidence onto the things that we're talking about that took place 35 years ago, that at the time they talked about it 35 years ago was already 10 years into its development. So around 50 years ago, guys, about the age that I am coming to, was how far back we can trace some of these technologies. But as I says, before we do that, let's go check out targeted individuals. Okay, so here we go. Targeted evidence. It is kind of a long article. We might skip some parts depending on the time frame here. But the official site for evidence to prove targeting to individuals, and targeting exists in the form of organized stalking, directed energy weapons, voice to skull, remote neural monitoring, illegal experiments into mind control, threats to silence people, illegal surveillance, and COINTELPRO and FBI discrediting. The official site for targeted evidence includes admissible evidence, reputable links, reputable doctors and PhDs, and government sources. Targeting exists. Targeting is the phenomenon of somewhat organized groups of people harassing, abusing, and targeting another class of innocent people. One example of possible mind manipulation of targeting would be the mask, to mask or not to mask debate. You've got people who, get very angry about people who don't wear masks, and we've got people who don't wear masks getting a little bit upset and angry about people that do wear masks, and these guys sort of back and forth it on social media with what they feel is right. But the targeted people are called illegally targeted people. And finally, the illegally targeted community in March of 2019 has evidence of the existence of targeting. This is according to the United States House of Representatives, the ACLU, and many other reputable sources. Several sources, including the ACLU, said that the class of people were targeted. Further congressmen and congresswomen called them targeted individuals. Go to targeting evidence page. There's a link. Organized stalking. Organized stalking is carried out by a group of people that work together to stalk, harass, injure, isolate, impoverish, and mentally attack victims with the intention of shattering their life. This crime is distinct from other crimes in that there is generally no motive except for viciousness itself or as a paid organized criminal. The methods used to carry out the abuses are surreptitious in nature and usually carried out in plain sight. Often modern technology is utilized, sometimes even with support from rogue and scandalous, perverted law enforcement. The end result is torture, and it attracts the most vile class of people. The target is a plaything to their attempted controller using wireless devices to carry out the physical and mental abuses. What I'm talking about, guys, your phone is your abuser. And the organized stalking is worldwide and is also called contract stalking or gang stalking. The electronic harassment that accompanies organized stalking is also known as covert harassment, and the stalker sometimes uses remote assault and battery in their reprehensible crimes. Many organized stalkers have successfully destroyed their targets, called illegally targeted people, by putting their targets in isolation from family, friends, financial ruin, and other causes, chaos, and utter chaos. Where we're living now, people are in isolation from family and friends. The world's in utter chaos. People are struggling to make ends meet, who have been put out of work as a result of this pandemic. But finally, this predatory, abnormal, and abhorrent behavior is being exposed through legal action, public speaking, and public awareness. I'm speaking, and I'm trying to publicly make you aware to this. Directed energy weapons, DEWs, are ranged weapons that affect its target with highly focused energy, including laser, microwaves, and particle beams. These military type weapons are now illegally targeting people with electromagnetic frequencies. Both microwave heating and microwave hearing weapons can be used on people, and the unknowing person would be confused by the bioeffects. These dangerous frequency waves permeate the body tissues, causing serious degradation of health. Electronic warfare is defined as any military action involving the use of electromagnetic and directed energy to control the electromagnetic spectrum to attack the enemy. The Navy calls this electromagnetic battle management, EBM. But now these weapons are being used in organized crimes against illegally targeted people. Voice to skull, or V2K, is a phenomenon to project auditory effects or voices into a person's head, bypassing the ears, hearing the voices in your head, people. This electromagnetic radiation, including the microwave auditory effect, uses frequencies and surveillance techniques to transmit sounds and thoughts into people's heads, maybe via their cellular device. Remote neural monitoring, RNM as it is known, and the name suggests, is a technology that can be used to remotely monitor neural activity of a host. With RNM, not only is it possible to violate the privacy of the illegally targeted person, but it is possible to read and manipulate a person's emotional thought process along with the subconscious and dreams. A little bit what the author in the previous article said he had experienced, and something I've also experienced. But research studies have shown that human brain thinks at a rate of around 5,000 bits per second and does not have the capacity to compete with supercomputers performing via satellites, implants, and biotelemetry. At present, it is reported that around the world, supercomputers are monitoring millions and millions of people simultaneously with the speed of 20 billion bits per second, especially in countries like the US, Japan, Israel, and many European countries. We've spoken about the Sentient World Simulation, a supercomputer that monitors, tracks us in real time, and runs all of our data through a variety of drills and simulations to govern and determine what the next problem reaction solution is going to be. But the government have justified this technology as cutting edge under the objective to detect any criminal thought taking place inside the mind of possible culprits. Let's think of Minority Report here, folks, and the thought police. But the reality is this is a violation of the United States Constitution, Fifth Amendment, witnesses against himself remote neuromonitoring as a violation of basic human rights because it violates the privacy and dignity of thoughts and activities of life. Illegal mind-controlled experiments. The US has a verifiable record of illegal intelligence agency abuses, including mind-controlled experiments. This was revealed in the United States Congress Church Committee hearing named after Senator Frank Church, after holding 126 full committee meetings, 40 subcommittee hearings, interviewing some 800 witnesses in public and closed sessions, and combining through 110,000 documents. The committee published its final report on April 29, 76, determining intelligence excess at home and abroad. The final report concluded intelligence agencies have undermined the constitutional rights of citizens primarily because checks and balances designed by the framers of Constitution to assure accountability have not been applied. One of those illegal programs was something we've mentioned you should be familiar with, MK Ultra, a top secret CIA project in which the agency conducted hundreds of clandestine experiments, sometimes on unwitting, unknowing US citizens to assess potential use of LSD and other drugs for mind control, information gathering, and psychological torture. Who knows what you might give up for just a little bit of dopamine these days? And dopamine is something you might receive from sharing and agreeing with propaganda mimetics. But the experiments, which are actually federal crimes, continue to present day, but are in the process of being exposed. Threats to silence people. This deserves a category all to itself, but this is how the United States government is able to implement the targeting program into families and communities. It has widely been reported by the United States Central Intelligence Agency whistleblower, decorated specialist Kevin Shipp, that the CIA intimidates and silences whistleblowers, witnesses, families, and the American people that speak out about government abuse, and will even claim the whistleblowers or the person that speaks out as having psychological problems. Illegal surveillance is being used on all of the American people, so this just makes the illegal targeted program easier to implement. Federal agencies and law enforcement, several whistleblowers have come forward so far, including Edward Snowden, something I do like to mention and add of my own thought and opinion here, and something I theorize and believe to be the case is no one blows whistles that ain't meant to be heard. But William Binary, Kirk Webby, and Karen Stewart have all blown whistles on this subject, and in fact the National Security Agency whistleblower William Binney has publicly said, when you marry the intelligence agencies, the secret intelligence agencies with the police, which is what they are doing, you end up with a police state and a secret police, and that is exactly what we've got. COINTELPRO and FBI counterintelligence program is what it is short for, was conducted by the FBI from 56 to 71 to discredit and neutralize organizations in the United States government, targeted by infiltrating the organizations to discredit them. It was covert and often used extra legal means to criminalize various forms of political struggle and derail several social movements, such as those for civil rights. The counterintelligence operations included intensive surveillance, organizational infiltration, anonymous mailing, and police harassment. The entire illegally targeted community is currently researching and searching for similar programs, and that is it, guys. It wasn't as long as I expected it to be, but there is a little bit about targeted individuals and how they go about harassing these targeted individuals. So that's it, me done reading. We've got some stuff to watch now that you may have already seen before, but I am putting them up in their entirety so that you will be able to pay greater attention to some interesting documentaries or reports done back in 1985, both on CNN and then Discovery Channel respectively, before we do return to the Thrift Store studio and recommence with live proceedings here on Reality Decoded. So sit back and get ready to be disturbed.
Of a weapon with no visible trace, a weapon that could knock out tanks, ships, and planes as fast as the speed of light. The same technology with modifications could disorient and even tranquilize military personnel, rendering them virtually helpless in the battle zone. These are the new weapons of war we will examine in this series. For the past 40 years, the world has been riveted by the threat of nuclear war, and more recently by the prospect of space defenses using lasers and other modern technologies. But while both sides at the Geneva summit will be focusing on these matters, progress is being made in even newer weapons that could render any arms agreement relatively useless. Lightning is the most dramatic form of energy to be found in nature. Scientists have succeeded in creating limited types of artificial lightning, and some think that these could be the forerunners of a new type of directed energy weapon, part of a family of weapons which operate within the radio frequency segment of the electromagnetic spectrum, and are thus referred to as radio frequency weapons. Dr. James Frazier has researched electromagnetic effects for the Air Force for over 10 years, and he, like a small but growing number of weapons experts, feels that radio frequency, or RF weapons, could be the wild card in the ongoing arms race.
You could have tremendous amounts of radiative power. And what you did with that power then is a matter of engineering design and what what your goal is.
Robert Bass, a physicist and PhD in mathematics, is working on U.S. weapons research. He says that the Soviets seem to be ahead in a number of areas, and especially in RF weapons.
We are behind the Soviet Union in directed energy weapons based on 60 gigahertz microwave beams.
Dr. Bass and others feel the most likely form of Soviet RF weaponry would be high-powered microwaves, similar to a focused, ultra-high-intensity radar beam. It would literally cook humans and knock out computers and electronic surveillance and communications gear. An operational RF weapon, relatively cheap and reusable, could devastate sophisticated and expensive war machinery. The $20 million F-16 fighter, for example, is totally controlled through electronic sensors and computers. With no manual flight controls, the plane would literally fall out of the sky after being hit with a high-intensity pulse of microwave radiation. Scientists say that microwaves and other types of RF pulses operating at specific frequencies or windows can be transmitted with little or no loss of power. Machines known as gyrotrons can produce the massive pulses needed to drive these devices, and it's believed that the Soviet Union has a 3 to 5 year lead in this technology. Over the past year, CNN has repeatedly asked the Department of Defense and the Air Force about radio frequency weapons. After much resistance, DoD finally said that the subject was too sensitive to discuss. In my next report, unexplained cloud-like phenomena, which may be evidence of a Soviet breakthrough in RF technology. Chuck DeCaro, CNN Special Assignments. This is a Soviet LIDA machine. It transmits low-energy radio pulses between 0 and 100 cycles per second. In the Soviet Union, LIDAs have been used for years to tranquilize psychiatric patients without physical contact. This sound, which is received by shortwave radios in the United States, is generated by another Soviet radio frequency device. It is known as the woodpecker because of its tapping noise. It is broadcast by a number of high-powered radio transmitters operating deep in the Soviet Union since July 4th, 1976. Though the official Defense Department explanation of the woodpecker is that it is an over-the-horizon radar designed to track U.S. missile launches, some scientists suspect that the woodpecker is designed to interfere with human brain function.
As far as I'm concerned, the potential that this has for producing a direct psychoactive effect upon the total American population is there, has never been disproven.
Dr. Robert Becker is a pioneer in the field of bioeffects of electromagnetism.
The signal range within which the woodpecker operates is that which has been reported by many investigators to produce a tranquilizing effect upon animals.
We are just incredibly sensitive to these magnetic stimuli.
Dr. Bob Beck, a PhD in nuclear engineering, has done extensive research into electromagnetic effects on humans.
The signal was permeating power grids in the United States. It was being picked up by power lines, re-radiated. It was coming into the homes on the light circuits.
I was surprised after coming here that the influence of electromagnetic fields was almost completely ignored here.
Dr. Larissa Valenskaya was heavily involved in Soviet electromagnetic research before being allowed to emigrate to the United States. She told CNN about Soviet research in electromagnetic effects.
They demonstrated theoretically and also demonstrated experimentally that low frequency, low energy electromagnetic fields also can possess biological efficiency. Because any field not only carries energy, but also carries information.
She stated that the research was carried out on orders from the Soviet government.
Of course, the military were extremely interested in this potential of remote influence.
Is the United States military working in the field of electronic mind control? Officially, the Department of Defense will not comment because the subject area is, quote, too sensitive. But CNN has learned from this government scientist, who did not want to be identified, that a Navy laboratory conducted research into the use of an RF device for counterterrorism and special operations.
It's possible to entrain a certain percentage of a population, apparently, with weak magnetic fields.
The study also showed that RF signals could dissolve certain types of rat brain cells at a distance, causing disorientation and nausea. According to the scientist, even though the program was successful, the government never followed up on it. Dr. James Fraser did electromagnetic research for the U.S. Air Force for many years. At one time, he proposed a battlefield RF weapon system.
You could make an antenna that would be carryable by a helicopter, and that this could be expected to produce a wide variety of symptoms, actually, by humans who happen to be standing in the beam.
According to Dr. Fraser, the Air Force never followed up. At Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, another RF weapons concept is nicknamed the brain bomb. According to the book Star Warriors, the brain bomb would focus a nuclear blast into a huge pulse of low-frequency RF energy that would stun huge numbers of troops. Apparently, it too has not yet been funded. The Department of Defense will not comment about Soviet RF weapons, or if American RF weapons development is going forward. However, experts interviewed by CNN say that the Soviets are apparently ahead and could exploit that lead in a surprise strategic move. A move that could have grave consequences for the United States. From Washington, this is Chuck DeCaro, CNN Special Assignments. This is a Tesla coil. It was invented some 90 years ago, but now a growing number of experts in the United States feel that it may form the basis of a new generation of Soviet weapons. They are known as radio frequency or RF weapons because they operate in the radio frequency spectrum. Their existence is noted in this U.S. Department of Defense publication, which says the Soviets could use them to destroy components of missiles, to interfere with radar and other electronic systems, and even to alter human mind functions. The concept of RF weaponry was predicted at the turn of the century by Nikola Tesla, an American who had emigrated from Yugoslavia. He is best remembered as the man who invented alternating current electricity. In 1899, Tesla built this giant coil which produced 10 million volts of artificial lightning. From it, he theorized the possibility of death rays. This and many other of his ideas about the physics of electricity were ridiculed by the scientific establishment.
Pure science is not a sure thing. You can't predict what's going to work out and what's not going to work out.
Robert Golka, a research scientist, built a replica of the Tesla coil about 80 years later. Golka was trying to produce a phenomenon known as ball lightning. He also used the Tesla coil to conduct testing for the U.S. Air Force.
What I was doing was setting in maybe 5-foot-long models of advanced fighter aircraft, and we would want to try to find out which part of the airplane was more vulnerable to lightning strikes, whether it was a wingtip or the canard where the pilot sat.
These experiments could also demonstrate the effect of the electromagnetic pulse of a nuclear blast, and Golka says the effect of RF weapons as well. Golka thinks that Tesla's theory that electromagnetic power could be transmitted through the Earth and its atmosphere without wires is a key element in the Soviet Union's work on RF weapons. Tesla's novel weapons theories were generally ignored in the United States. Nikola Tesla died in 1943, and after the Second World War, all his papers and effects were shipped to his native Yugoslavia, where they were enshrined in a museum. Some say that that museum proved to be a gold mine for Soviet weapons scientists.
We haven't even formally, so far as I know, to ourselves admitted that these weapons exist in the hands of the Soviet Union.
Weapons analyst Tom Bearden, a retired U.S. Army lieutenant colonel, is among a small group of scientists and engineers who believe that the Soviets have perfected Tesla's ideas and are developing radio frequency weapons on a scale unimagined in this country.
There have been a series of tests of these kinds of weapons, apparently, for a number of years. For example, airliners from Iran, before the fall of the Shah, saw deep within the Soviet Union very large, glowing spherical balls of light which started out small and then expanded to very large size, which are apparently these kinds of weapons for use in an anti-ballistic missile defense role.
Bearden believes that these satellite photographs are of mysterious non-nuclear explosions near an uninhabited island in the East Siberian Sea, and that they are discharges from an RF weapon that uses intersecting energy beams called scalars.
In doing so, you can create, for example, either an electromagnetic explosion at a distance, or you can create an electromagnetic implosion at a distance, the extraction of energy from a distant point. This would look like a cold explosion, so to speak. And I believe the thing on April the 9th, 1984, off the coast of Japan that involved several 747 jet airliners, I believe that incident was a test of a cold explosion weapons. At least it met all the characteristics.
Pilot Doug Happ was in one of the 5 airline crews that saw an incredibly large cloud rising from the moonlit overcast below.
It looked like a plate coming up through an overcast, but it just kept expanding. And as it got higher, it was apparent that you could see right through the middle of it, so it looked like a big smoke ring. At the time that we first noticed this cloud, we weren't sure what to do, and we took no evasive action because we didn't know which way to go. And I think eventually we either ran through it or it completely engulfed us.
Happ says when his flight reached Anchorage, Alaska, it was checked for radioactive contamination. None was found. Dr. James Fraser has done extensive research in electromagnetic effects for the U.S. Air Force.
It could be due to a strong electromagnetic beam, but we don't know that. They can also be caused by chance thermal gradients. We've had for several years studies of clear air turbulence, for instance, which have produced this kind of disruption. The people who cited those are experienced pilots and should have been familiar with that kind of event. And this apparently was something outside their experience.
There have been a number of times when Soviet technological surprise has upset the strategic balance. In 1948, the Soviets detonated an A-bomb years before it was thought possible. In 1957, the Soviets stunned the world by launching Sputnik 1, the world's first artificial satellite. And in 1976, the Soviets were discovered to have been embarked upon a program to build particle beam weapons, a discovery which led 5 years later to America's Star Wars program. In each case, the United States was able to regain the balance. But this time, with radio frequency weapons, some scientists feel that the Soviet lead may be permanent. In my next report, how radio frequency devices can be used as weapons against the human mind. Chuck DeCaro, CNN, on special assignment. Brainstorm was a science fiction movie about a device which electronically injected thoughts into the human mind. In this scene, the mind control machine projects images into the brain of the chief scientist through an electrode headset. The scientist then finds himself experiencing the thoughts of a wild truck ride. But even in this futuristic Hollywood tale, the subject still had to be connected to the machine by an electrode headset.
That's remarkable.
But not as remarkable as a real-life experiment where I was the subject of a prototype device designed to project images into the mind without electrodes. The prototype machine, developed from Soviet scientific data, could, according to some scientists, have a profound effect as a weapon of war. Electronic mind control research is not new. A scientific milestone in this area came in the 1960s, when Dr. Jose Delgado demonstrated remote control over a charging bull. By connecting a radio antenna to electrodes inserted into the bull's brain, Delgado proved that the animal's aggressive impulses could be thwarted by electronically manipulating the bull's muscle reflexes.
Do you realize the fantastic possibilities if from the outside we could modify the inside? Could we give messages to the inside? But the beauty is that now we are not using electrodes.
In recent years, Delgado has shown that the behavior of monkeys can be altered using low-power, pulsating magnetic fields. But in these experiments, there were no antenna implants.
Any function in the brain, emotions, intellect, personality, could be perhaps modified by this non-invasive technology.
Delgado's research has so far been limited to animals. But in the Soviet Union, a radio frequency, or RF device, has been used for over 30 years to manipulate the moods of mental patients. It's called a LIDA machine. It radiates pulses of radio frequency energy, as well as light, sound, and heat. The pulse rate is in the extremely low frequency range, between 0 and 100 pulses per second. Dr. Ross Adey is the top researcher at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Loma Linda, California. He has been investigating the effects of the LIDA machine.
Now, what do the Soviets use this machine for? Well, they don't use it anymore. We should be very clear that this is a machine which is regarded by them as somewhat obsolete technologically.
This scientist, who did not want his identity revealed, is employed by the U.S. government and has done secret RF weapons research. He believes that tests done with the LIDA and similar machines prove that humans are susceptible to remote alterations of mood and awareness.
Certain kinds of weak electromagnetic signals work exactly like drugs. And so the promise is that anything you can do with drugs, you could do with the right electromagnetic signals. Apparently, there are specific sites involved, specific functions involved. It's a matter of matching up, just like it is with a pill or a drug to cause and effect. You could have a cause and effect relationship between a magnetic field and a biological function.
CNN enlisted the help of noted physicist Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher and electrical engineer Bill Van Weiss to build and test an RF mine interference machine from data found in Soviet scientific literature. The machine itself was inexpensive and easy to construct, using parts from a consumer electronics store. It emits a weak magnetic field, pulsed at extremely low frequency. As the subject of the test, I was blindfolded, and my ears were blocked to prevent inadvertent clues as to what was happening. A magnetic probe was placed about 18 inches from my head. As the experiment began, 2 signal generators produced waveform patterns that were transmitted by the magnetic probe at about 1/1000th of the Earth's natural magnetic field strength.
Describe anything that you see, if any.
In the control room, Van Weiss varied the waveforms being generated. In another room, I could see waveforms changing shape in my mind.
Parabola just went by.
Parabola just went by.
Oh, yeah, I did. I just flipped the switch. Parabola?
Uh-huh.
All right. Let's see. Check this out. That's what happened. I flipped the switch. Okay.
There's a spike right there. Spike.
Right there.
Spike.
I dramatically changed the generator. I stepped it by 10 right here. And the intermix from the 2 generators was right where you said that you saw a spike.
Van Weiss says that when I failed to see any change, it was because he had not set the proper frequency and power levels. Later, I asked Van Weiss what a weapon using this technology could do.
Induce basically what would be considered hallucinations in people, direct them to do things against their so-called better judgment.
How easy would it be to assemble a weapon from existing off-the-shelf parts?
3 weeks, I could put together a weapon that would take care of a whole town.
We showed the results of our test to Dr. Robert Becker, a 2-time Nobel nominee for his work in the biological effects of electromagnetism.
This is a very significant experiment because it carries our understanding of how vision is actually performed a step further into the mystery.
He said he thought the machine caused a disturbance in the brain's interpretation of vision, and as such could be used as a weapon.
That kind of a disturbance in the visual system could markedly influence the operations of a fighter pilot, a helicopter pilot, or even a simple an aberration in the visual field as making everyone seeing double, or everyone having their visual field jitter like a poorly adjusted television screen. The effect of that upon the efficiency with which an Army, an Air Force, or a Navy would operate would be catastrophic.
More about RF weapons in my next report. Chuck DeCaro, CNN, Special Assignments.
Described as Radio Shack parts that anybody can build, done in a laboratory.
The ultimate weapon in the info war would be so secret, so invisible, so undetectable, you would never know your mind was under attack. At Laurentian University in Ontario, Canada, a young student is about to undergo one of the strangest experiences of her life. They're hooking Denise's brain up to an electroencephalograph, or EEG machine. For 30 to 40 minutes, this will monitor her brainwaves. While these electric coils attached on either side of her head will immerse her brain in an electromagnetic field. Her brain actually completes the circuit between the 2 coils. The field pulsing through her brain is less powerful than one given off by a digital clock radio, but acutely controlled and focused at specific parts of the brain, it will open Denise's mind to outside suggestion by this man. They're going to switch to Dr. Michael Persinger is a professor of psychology and neuroscience. He is designing ways to put the power of mind control to good use. Persinger's research focuses on brain trauma, and he uses carefully controlled doses of electromagnetic radiation to induce relaxation and alleviate pain.
So what Sandra did was to initiate a opiate-releasing pattern. That's a burst-firing field that is stimulated once every 4 seconds. And that produces relaxation and a very pleasant sensation. Similarly, using the appropriate field, we can induce fear and apprehension, but clearly that would be unethical in that setting.
Dr. Persinger's tests suggest that carefully programmed electromagnetic frequencies can tap into individual brains and influence people's emotions.
The cognitive processes of the human brain are really quite simple. And if you understand how they work, you can make entire populations think and decide the manner in which you wish.
Many experts are skeptical of such an Orwellian scenario, but Persinger thinks the implications are chillingly real.
Suppose you generate a field that produces fear, fundamental fear, in large numbers of people. And then over the television or traditional ways, you say, the reason we're having this fear is because of this particular group. And now you start to move the population believing in the direction that you wish.
To influence 250 million people, the equivalent of the entire population of the United States, may not be that difficult. According to Dr. Persinger, we already have the technology, satellites and television, and radio transmitters. Mind control may already be happening. We know the mysterious PSYOPs plane can beam persuasive sounds and pictures into people's television sets. Will it someday beam disturbing frequencies directly into the mind? Mind control will be the ultimate non-lethal weapon. The prospect of a war without pain or death, where victory comes without a single shot being fired, should be a cause for jubilation. Smart military technologies and non-lethal weapons could at least prevent the awful carnage of large-scale head-to-head combat. What then can we expect of war in the 21st century? Which will frighten us more, the threat of unspeakable destruction from plasma cannons and lasers on high, or the prospect of national computer crashes? Paradoxically, the promise of truly bloodless war may come only with the most devastating weapon of all. If the human mind and will become the battleground of the future, War 2020 may be won without so much as a whimper, let alone a bang.
And there you have it, guys, and thus concludes tonight's feature presentation on Mind Wars. Make of it what you will, but with all that evidence and all that information, would it be foolish to think that we are somehow exempt from such methodology and devious mind control devices? But anyway, yes, Kali Ninja is the gusset. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's get rid of the presentation and turn back on the camera. Welcome back, guys. There I am. Soon Good Tea. I'm guessing you mean so good. There we go, as you corrected yourself for you. Thank you for that. So hopefully you did enjoy it. And again, you know, I do tend to repeat it. And some of you said you had a little bit of deja vu and you had saw some of those individuals in a documentary before. And it was kind of that documentary that I found. It kind of fueled reality, decoded the 1985 edition. And as we've established that technology was around in 1985. And at the time they said it is a possibility that it is already being used. And also they mentioned within those documentaries from 1985 that brain control technology, mind control technology rather, is nothing new. So that was 35 years ago. It wasn't new 35 years ago. Here we are now, 21st century, under a huge psychological operation slash warfare under pandemic. We're all being, you know, forced to stay at home or spend less and less time with real people, more and more time on our social devices. We're being encouraged to use things like Zoom, like Signal. We're being forced to go to different, you know, get more and more applications. Hey, if you're not happy with Facebook, go to Tumblr. If you don't like Tumblr, go to Parler. If you don't like Parler, go to Telegram. And all of these apps just add even more frequencies into our lifestyle. And Lois said there's no way they'd be doing this to you, to her. Again, not voluntary. I'm pretty sure none of us would volunteer for any of this type of abuse and intrusion to our minds and bodily functions. But if we're unaware and we don't need to consent to it, and they can disprove that they're not doing it as best as they can, then would we ever know? Is the question. As I said, I've experienced some things. I will definitely look for it there, Marduk. But I've certainly experienced some of those symptoms in something I've mentioned before. You know, I did spend 4 years of my life living in the United States, and prior to that, I had visited the United States quite a few occasions and have pretty much seen all four corners of the United States. I haven't seen so much of the middle, but I have seen quite a lot of the states, and probably seen more of the states than some Americans have. But I don't think I've ever been anywhere where I felt more content or happy, especially, you know, I mentioned before when I went out to shopping malls, something I dreaded in England. Certainly if my wife, my ex-wife, wherever she may be, bless her soul, used to want to go shopping, I would want to fake death in order to not go, or drive recklessly, hoping, my God, maybe we have a road traffic accident and we won't have to go to shops and go to IKEA afterwards. But when I was in the States and I was in shopping malls, I was blissfully, you know, just walking around, quite happy to sit there, put a couple of bucks in the old massage chair and go and get myself some Orange Julius and spend forever and a day in there. And many people did. You've heard the term mall rats. Many people used to frequent and just hang out in the malls. And were these malls a little bit of a trap of electromagnetic frequencies, making you feel good, making you feel happy, inducing a drug-like effect that made you stay within the mall and essentially made you shop more within the mall. And you know, something also I've heard is, you know, in recent years that Best Buy, they were essentially a Faraday cage that blocked out any external mobile signals or Wi-Fi or stuff. And when you went into that store, you have to hook up to their Wi-Fi, and this is so that when you want to sort of do price comparisons or look on the net, you have to use it through their Wi-Fi. And when you sort of do accept the terms and conditions to log in onto their Wi-Fi, they will then trace, track, and bombard you with desired consent. Marduk. Okay, Marduk, no worries. I'm glad, because sometimes people have names that are a little bit of a, like Marmaduke the dog, so to similar there. So anyway, Marduk, we have correctly corrected the pronunciation. Devil Speak. I saw it being used to promote a show on A&E called Paranormal Activity. As you approached the billboard, the show, you could hear voices from nowhere. Yeah, I did actually have a video about smart lamp posts and smart billboards. And I think once or twice when I was out and about downtown last summer doing the walkabout videos and some of the Tea and Friend videos, we come across a couple of these smart billboards that kind of look at you, judge you sort of on sort of algorithmic stereotypes, I guess, and then target ads that you will then see on that billboard. And they also, I think it was during the movie release of Minority Report here in Dundas Square, which is a little bit like the equivalent of Times Square, I guess, here in Toronto. to promote the movie, they set up all these hidden cameras around Dundas Square, and they got quite a few of the big screens similar to Times Square up there for advertising purposes. And as people were just unsuspectedly walking around Dundas Square, all of a sudden they would be put up on the big screens in for all to see in the heart of downtown Toronto. And it's like a little bit of a movie promotion in like Minority Report, come in this thing, are you being watched? And again, the thought police, and I've actually really sort of, there's been more than once I've looked and adds to this, if you can relate, but I've looked at my phone like, are you fucking reading my mind? Like, I'm sure, you know, I know we're all very aware that sometimes we talk about stuff, sometimes we type about stuff, and days afterwards we'll see ads or articles related to what we've spoken about or typed before. But stuff I've thought about is jumping up on my news, you know, like news feed in some of my suggested content, and when I'm sort of looking for these, researching the pop-up ads and things that are come into play are all things that I've sort of mentioned recently, you know, in maybe, I don't know if you guys have noticed on your social media anything that may have come up sort of reference or relevant to things you may have seen, not just on my channel, but from watching other YouTubers or joining other groups and stuff. And this is sort of how the synchronization of all these devices works. It kind of, you know, as I said, the keyboard traces us wherever we go. No way to use any application or platform without using the keyboard. And you know, we're always never too far. Right now I've got a computer, I've got a phone, I've got another phone, and I've also got the Wi-Fi router not too far away, and I've got a couple of Chromecasts set up to my TV. But you know, what extent are we at? How much are they playing an influence? How much are they interfering with our minds? And how can we truly, you know, disprove that we're not under the control of outside influence from electromagnetic and radio frequencies? And how could we even prove that they are using us against it? But you know, we hear about 5G, we look at all these technology, these radars, these satellite dishes, these, you know, communication towers. We're saturated and surrounded by this stuff. And Martha mentioned something about look at 5G. And again, you know, at the start, you did come in a little bit late, but at the start of this presentation, we talked about how back in the 80s, you know, this was the dawn of the digital era. This was the first generation. Now, there is an ancient native ideology and the principles of 7 generations, in which, you know, they talk to 7 generations of life and family and community and society. But any sort of radical implementations you make to that society in the first generation will have a substantial impact in the 7th generation. So was the dawn of the digital era back then in the 1980s, the first generation, was that running in accordance to the greater agenda? So by the time we reach 7G, that is it. We are completely immersed in an electromagnetic, artificially intelligent, mind-induced, mind-controlled society where we can't think for ourselves, and we do act as robotic zombies. And apparently reading our minds. And this is it. If they do have, you know, what privacy, what hope do we really have? And this is something, you know, I've mentioned many times before. You know, there's that good old boy gun-toting American in a truck armed with AR-15s and shotguns. What good's that going to do against an you can't shoot electromagnetic waves. You can fire all the fucking ammunition into the air that you want. You are not going to injure or damage this weaponry against us. You're not going to dent it. It's not even bows and arrows against the lightning. So, you know, are the, you know, gun arguments or falls redundant, whether you've got them or whether you haven't got them. Can you withstand and stand up against the technology that is being used against us? Silent weapons for silent wars. And you're right, privacy is very much illusion, just as our freedom of choice is an illusion. When you've only got 2 choices that are forced upon you, what choice do you really have? And as South Park once so eloquently and humorously put it, it's always a choice between, was it douchebag and, I can't remember the other one, a shit sandwich for argument's sake. But you know what I'm saying? we don't really have much privacy. We don't have any illusion, and more of that privacy is being taken away. And just like we saw the introduction of the Patriot Act after the events of September 11th, we are now going to see the implementation, and probably already are, under some kind of pandemic act, with all these bylaws and all these guidelines and shit that they're putting into place to keep us under control, or as they like to say, it's safe. Keep us safe from a deadly virus with a 99% survival rate. Lois, I'm guessing you are a friend, relative, or acquaintance of our dear and beloved baby P, judging by some of your comments, and maybe you have been before, if or not I'm remembering. But you said, I have ADD and some OCD. Good luck keeping up with my brain. Well, these again could be conditions and symptoms of electromagnetic frequency, or maybe being subjected to, possibly, I'm not saying you did, but you know, some people that play a lot of video games, when you take them away from their video games, they have ADD type symptoms. And these could also, and there are reports that link these things to sort of vaccinations. And we've seen, you know, a few videos of mothers who said, you know, I had a perfectly healthy child, it was bright and alert, and all of a sudden, like, we've got it vaxxed, and now it's a fucking window licker. And I don't mean to be unkind with that, and was trying to sort of say it for a little bit of humorous purposes. But could these well be symptoms and conditions of electromagnetic radio frequency waves? Devil speak. First supercomputer was the pipe organ. It used 120 digital keys to control 15,000 to 20,000 analog devices that played in certain frequencies. Yeah, I can remember reading about such forth this. It was sort of was it back in the late 1800s or something, at one of the World's Fairs that they put out. So they were a big thing back in the day, the World's Fair. Kali Ninja, I'm gonna more than 5 minutes to delivery van sends a signal out. Yeah, there you are. So when you get away so what I'm guessing what you're saying there, Kali Ninja, is if you walk away from your van for longer than 5 minutes, you know, you need a bathroom break, you want to maybe stop, get yourself a bite to eat or a bottle of water or something. If it takes longer than 5 minutes, then an alert goes off, and maybe your phone will ping, where are you, operative Kali Ninja? Your Amazon truck has been away from 5 minutes. 1500s the pipe was invented. Wow. So even longer than that. I'm possibly thinking of something else. No, being ADD most of my life, and OCD since control. And okay, alrighty. Well, I'm 50 years. Yeah, I'm 52. Marduke. And need that shit, but no doctor will prescribe it. No, I don't think it's. They have no. They're insured, Martha. They don't care if Kali Ninja gets robbed. In fact, they probably want him to get robbed so that they can use the insurance. It's more to see where he is, what he's doing. I got a pipe organ. Boom, ching. Thank you for that. Immature, inappropriate, non-PG-13 comment. But thank you. That is sometimes needed, a little bit of inappropriate humor. As I said, you know, we are livestock, and we are, you know, not exactly, they don't care about us at our jobs. We're dispensable, you know. If Kali Ninja didn't show up to work tomorrow or ever again, let's hope that's not the case, that there'll be someone on the sidelines that will come and replace him. The great cathedrals, yeah, you're right. Back in, you know, in some of my days going traveling and backpacking around Europe, we used to go to quite a lot of the cathedrals in those cities, and usually, you know, they had some absolutely breathtakingly beautiful sort of organs in sort of architecture and sculptures around that. 420, it's always 420 somewhere. Got an empty it's the empty one. But yeah, I did have a little smoke before. Yeah, there you go. Like-minded, I think the majority of us here at some point or another do enjoy a little bit of the sweet marijuana. And believe it or not, marijuana does supposedly combat the effects of electromagnetic frequency, if or not that is to believe, but it does sort of simulate and open parts of the mind that may be less susceptible to if they're closed, if you know what I mean, and when they are sort of producing a drug effect on you with electromagnetic frequencies, maybe having another drug in your system to counter combat those effects might be an assistance. I'm using that as my excuse, but as I said, guys, I do know very well that I was programmed, and you know, I was talking about living in America and visiting America, and even before I ever set foot in America, I loved America. I don't know why, or I didn't know why until I looked at what sort of you know, the research that I've done here was sort of what helped me understand how I was the way I was, and that's why I'm trying to share it, to maybe sort of give you a little bit of a grasp. And you know, as we sort of heard earlier on, understanding who your enemy is and what your enemy is gives you a better understanding of how to combat it. But the reason I loved America was I immersed myself in American comics, American cartoons, American movies. I dressed like an American. I even tried to talk like American sometimes to sort of impress girls that I didn't know as a teenager. I modeled myself very much on Marty McFly and John Bender from Breakfast Club. These two individuals influenced my life greatly within, you know, and this is what fiction does, why we decode fiction. It gives us an understanding of reality, it prepares us for reality, and it programs us for reality. And this was my program. I was programmed by Hollywood in the 1980s to be the all-American, ever-loving, you know, I used to tune into WrestleMania when Hulk Hogan would come out to I'm a Real American and doing all that shit. You know, how he used to do, rip his t-shirt off. I was there on the street, you know, and even before I ever set foot in America, I knew the words to the American national anthem. I remember going to see Rocky IV in Swindon, my hometown in England, on a rainy Monday afternoon when we had a teacher training day. Nearly every kid in the town went to watch Rocky IV, and we were all there when he was fighting Drago. USA, US. Like, Rocky couldn't hear us. It was a movie, but all these kids, fucking, you know, 600-700 teenagers were all stood up on the chairs, English kids, singing USA for a fictitious character. And was that because of the propaganda within Rocky IV? My goodness, it is very, very rich and ripe with Cold War propaganda. But let's see what a couple of you guys are saying in the chat, and give my brain a chance to catch up with my mouth. Callie Ninda, yeah, but the van really sent a false signal out and I had the police following me. My goodness, Callie Ninja, that is interesting. Are you able to sort of like do any recording of this stuff, like secretly, and maybe sort of share it? I'd love to see some, because Amazon, I believe, are one of those corporate dictators that are going to be part of the one world order. This is what globalization is all about, making the globe dependent on only a few certain organizations. You know, how Walmart have a global reach, Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, Starbucks, all of these global corporations are part of the globalist agenda. It was never about, you know, sort of the mom and pop shop maybe being able to branch out to ventures in pastures new and setting up shop overseas. It was about providing the platform for these corporate dictators to capitalize upon the market and set out a global monopoly for the one world. God, I meet so many people in North America who say they wish they talked like me. And dear Tenzin, TT, as you may have known, I was in a couple of my videos when I did have a day job and was in the restaurant. I used to teach her to talk English. Sometimes when she was my work wife and we spent a shift together and it was a bit quiet, she'd come into the kitchen and I'd teach her to speak with an English accent. I can fake it pretty good. Maybe Marduk, I said Marduk again, Marduk, we should get you on as a guest caller. You can do it in a British accent and I will go back to my good old southern boy, Dixie, whistling, farting, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, shotgun wearing, F-50 driving, old American boy with a white picket fence and the apple pie. And I drink the sweetest sarsaparilla on the bayou, so help me, so I do. The only restaurants in the Vatican are McDonald's. That is interesting, Devil Speak. I actually didn't know that. Yes, I will check my email for sure. I'll probably do that right after we finish this stream, which will probably be in around 20 minutes time, which will bring us up to the 3-hour mark. But I do want to bring in some guest callers. I don't think she is here anymore. I think she silently and politely made her exit earlier on, but I do intend to bring Annie on as a guest. And actually, funny enough, I was going to ask if you were willing to come as another guest panelist on that Marduk, because we do sort of seem to have a little bit of a similar mindset, and certainly with the frequency stuff. And frequencies is something I've been talking a lot to Annie about over the past few months, you know, in private, so to speak. I want to be here when you fart. Yeah, you and your farts and burps, Becky Pamplin. I mean, look at you, lucky girl. You've got 3 burps tonight, and the show ain't over. She secretly encourages me, and I think you're probably secretly encouraging her as well by telling her not to encourage me, Lois. Reverse psychology, my darling. Lo, you better stick to the accent. And I don't really have much choice but to stick to this. It's the only accent I've got. And what I do a pretty good a poo, as some of you may have heard before, and I can do a northern English accent as well as a bit of a Scottish accent and probably a little bit of Irish, but we're not going to go there just now. Maybe we'll save that for another day, along with a special fart for Baby P. Although I do got some fart sound effects I could probably add into the edits just for gratuity. But as I said, guys, we are going to be wrapping this up around the 3-hour mark, which is in just over 15 minutes time. But Devil Speak, brother, I also want to get you on as a guest speaker. Let's try and get our act into gear. So we are sort of trying to come back a little bit more regularly and scheduled for you. I did say I'd come back yesterday, but bit of a clusterfuck, got myself a little bit waylaid and ended up sort of abandoning it. But we do plan to come back to you tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly what the topic is. I did watch just this week on, I think, Tuesday night, I sat myself down and stream and binged up to the most recent episode, a Japanese animated show called The Promised Neverland. Guys, I haven't seen a piece of fiction in a long time. This includes Utopia and Upload that boomed my eyes. I'm like, fuck me, this is the new Soylent Green. And as I said, I do want to put a little bit of a presentation together for you on that, although I don't know if it will be a long presentation. But there's also been a few other Asian and manga series I've watched in recent months, in recent weeks rather, that are pretty relevant and do sort of got some sort of significant or messaging going on. That I might do a Fiction Decoded Asian edition tomorrow, if that's cool with you. Baby P, 4, 5. My goodness, the fried chicken, good. I can still taste it as well. It's very delicious. I've actually had more than one person tell me that my fried chicken is better than KFC and Popeyes. And I'd love to be able to have you all round to make gusset it up. ATN from Quebec. Bonsoir, mon ami. C'est vrai comme c'est tout. Is about the only French I can remember. And où est Mimi? Mimi is la chatte. And something about la frette. No. I thought I remembered how to say curtains for a minute, but I didn't. Yeah, goodness. But anyway, the Promised Neverland. Oh my god. It is one of the most beautiful and thought-provoking pieces of fiction I've seen, as I said, in a long time. And it reignited my fanboy. I literally was sort of like sitting with my eyes like this next to the screen. The amount of monarch programming and symbology that is in there, as well as the message of human farming and human livestock, and in particular being bred for food. But that's something hopefully I will put together for tomorrow, and maybe try and bring you a little bit of a brief Fiction Decoded on some of the other recent Asian movies and series I've seen. I do like a little bit of manga from time to time, although not that weird, creepy manga that's actually hentai, that's pornographic, where schoolgirls are getting gang raped by demons and then pulled to pieces. Everybody gets the Soylent Green shit. None of us are going there. But this, as I said, it was a TV series. It came out in 2019 and has popped up a few times when I've been on my streaming app. But it did sort of look very sort of Pokemon-y animation style, which sort of I guess kind of I thought was a little bit targeted for younger individuals. But when I watched it, oh my god, and a little bit like in Logan's Run. Unfortunately, the poor individuals in the Promised Neverland, 30, they ain't getting to 15. They don't live past 12 before they're farmed out in the fed upon. But we will be looking a little bit at that, hopefully, as well as a couple of other, as I said, Asian pieces of fiction that I've seen that also may have a little bit of reference and relevance to what we've seen tonight. One in particular was called, what was it, Alice in Borderland? I think it's Alice in Borderland, but it's a little bit kind of, I don't really know how to describe it, but all of a sudden people vanish and only leave a handful of individuals left on Earth who then have to play sort of real life, kind of similar to that movie Saw. These weird and bizarre games where people usually end up dying. Sorry for not that will be of interest to you. Let me know now, and if it isn't, then I can always re-plan and put together something a little bit different. But as I said, it was something that really, really I'm not going to say I got a hard on for, but it certainly did perk my interest and have me paying attention. We didn't really want to tell you, Nancy, but you're never really out of the naughty corner. It's a sort of secret amongst the other family members that you are permanently in the naughty corner. We just don't tell you are. It's easier. Usually when we tell you you're in the naughty corner, then you get more naughty. Would you like to play a game? Yes, Saw, that was a creepy movie. Indeed, as was Hostel, come out around the same time. Remember when you could go off to these weird hostels and they'd kidnap people, and then you could pay to go and torture and kill them and do all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff, as is the Purge. Remember, like one day a year you're allowed to go out and commit crimes. My goodness, I'd actually love that in many ways. But let's just be glad that there isn't a real Purge just yet. But anyway, guys, we are getting closer to the 3-hour mark. So has anybody got anything to add from this evening, or anything they'd like to add about tomorrow night? And if or not, we come back. My plan is to do Friday, Saturday and Sunday, I guess. But as I said, I've got to figure out some content for you tomorrow, although I do have a shitload of tabs and stuff lined up. This is actually what I call the thrift phone, or what I'm calling now the reality phone. I'm actually recording on my main phone today. I don't know why, for some reason, but I started recording on it and just went with it. But I was going to look at some of the topics I've got in my tabs. I've actually got 69 tabs going on one browser. Yeah, no, I'm not even going to bother that. It could take a long time. But I've got some more stuff about Purple to bring you as well. We've looked at the psychotronic phones. Obviously there's the new Manhattan project. That might be something of interest. But I want to look a little bit more into that first for myself. I mean, I do sort of understand the chemtrails and the sort of disruption of the atmosphere, and sort of, I can't remember who it was that said they're sort of creating a dome for us. But War Games, yeah, that was another movie, come out 1984. Matthew Broderick thought he was playing a computer game, but it was actually a real life a simulation that almost did trigger a thermonuclear war. Tron also come out early 80s, virtual reality for you there. Some stuff there, maybe another topic I've got lined up to bring more information on. But as I said, still not hearing any enthusiasm towards a fiction decoded Asian edition. Maybe something that isn't up your street. That's it. It was Devil Stratospheric Aerosol Injection, and you've got to be very, very careful saying that, because aerosol could quite easily be misplaced for asshole. Imagine, yeah, don't even go there. Let's not go there, but try and consider it and give it a thought privately for you. But yeah, we can, as you guys know, fiction decoded, predictive programming, the programmatics, the sort of hidden messages is something I do have a little bit of an eye and a knack for. So I do got a lot of sort of material that I could work with, as well as, and not necessarily endless tabs, but I do have a lot of stuff lined up on my browsers of information that I do have intention at some point and not to bring you, which is why maybe we might come back to choose your reality. I might give you an option to choose, what do you want to see tomorrow? Alien Agenda, MK Ultra, Looking Glass, or should we go in a different direction altogether? But we'll probably get around to that next week perhaps. But as I said, still nothing. Yes, I can actually, Marduke, as long as I've got credit on my phone, which I did get a notification to say that I'm due to pay very shortly, or it will be shut off. Out of Arizona. Was Nicolas Cage in that, or I can't remember. I do know the movie you're talking about, Devil Speak. As we call those see, Becky, she just doesn't miss a beat about burps and farts. And I did tell you once, Becky, that it would be absolutely hilarious if you created a YouTube channel called Parpin Becky Parpin, where you could be, today I'm eating beans. Tune in next week, Parpin Baby Parpin, where I'll be eating corn on the cob. Hear me parp one more time. Share if you agree. Thumbs up if you want Becky P to start her own Parpin Becky Pamplin channel, where she farts after eating different foods each and every week. We also told you we should have What's in Baby Pamplin's Pocket, where you could pour, it's a watermelon. It's a travel shower. Hi guys, welcome to Baby Pamplin's Pocket. What's in my pocket today? It's a packet of cigarettes. Come on guys. I'm going to take your smiling emojis is that you want to see a Parpin Becky Pamplin YouTube channel. I'm checking it right now as we speak, Marduke. And yes, I do have your email, and I'll probably do that tomorrow if you don't mind, buddy. It's a little bit late tonight, and I've done a lot of talking today, pre-recording and through the show. But yeah, received. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll actually send you a text later so you know that it is me. And if not, we can maybe WhatsApp or something. But yeah, cool. I will get down to that. Appreciate it, guys. Only if she... that could be like a special thing, how flammable is this one? And then maybe she could like have a dog that gets not killed, but she could singe a little puppy or something. The old, yeah, that's true. Devil Speak. I don't know how we got to this, but I guess we did see some disturbing stuff. It's not a bad idea to end on a laugh and a giggle. Laughing and giggle does produce natural dopamine, and hopefully that will give you a little bit of a feel good once we are done and dusted tonight, which we've only got 5 minutes left to go. So I'm guessing nobody's really that interested on a fiction decoded Asian edition tomorrow. So maybe, and again, I do try to bring stuff that is at least a little bit interesting to you. I don't want to really ram too much of my fanboy geekness down your throats, but I found it very interesting and would like to share my findings with you. I have done that. What, you lit a fart and burnt a dog? A picture of you lighting up. Oh my good, wholesome family fun at the Pamplin household. Good God, can you imagine after Thanksgiving dinner? It's just as well you don't live in England, where we have Brussels sprouts for Christmas dinner. Imagine the Parpin household with Brussels sprouts. But she does tell me her husband's partial to fried cabbage. My goodness. And I did grow up with a Polish grandmother and a kitchen that stank of cabbage, so I can only imagine. But anyway, guys, we are getting very, very close. Anyone, somebody, just one person but Nancy, because you're just saying and agree with anything. I'm pretty sure if I said, guys, do you want to see me shit in a cup tomorrow, or do you want me to see me try and piss up a rope? Nancy would say, cool, Sha, I'd love it. That's interesting. But anyone, don't wear nylon breeches, or white for that matter. Things you learn about a person. Yeah, exactly. I'm guessing that probably wasn't the first time. It's probably happened a few times for it to warrant the picture. Hey, we should get a picture next time. You know what I'm saying? Facts galore. Gets pretty rank. I can well imagine. That was something that was very strange and interesting to me. In when I was locked up in jail, we do eat the same diet. Every meal is exactly the same. When you get your sack lunch, you eat the same. When you go to the chow hall, it's the same. It's not like you're eating different things. And everyone's farts smelled the same, and there was always a smell of bologna fart. Within any given time, you could always smell a bologna fart. And that is kind of the smell of prison. Irish Spring, soap, bologna farts, and secret baby powder deodorant. That is what the smells that remind me of prison. And of course ramen, noodles. What was that? BGOS is the key to self-sustainable energy. Oh my good God, BGOS, my babcia. That's Polish for grandmother, for those that you don't know. She was always making jars of BGOS, and I actually was terrified of BGOS as a child, but bless her soul, wherever she is, I like BGOS now. Never liked it when she made it. Good night, Martha. Thanks for tuning in. You always do the good night thing, just about as we're all about to say good night. But anyway, thank you for sticking around. If you could have waited just 2 more minutes, we would all be signing out, but never mind. Maybe a little bit of premature farewell ejaculation syndrome go there. Yeah, we do, and that is a little bit of something I do like to do, is try and add a little bit of humour in jokes, in laughs. So, you know, we do look at a lot of serious stuff here at Reality Decoded, a little bit more serious than maybe at TSP TV, but we also do think it's very important to laugh and joke. We're all buddies here, all part of the Reality Fam, the Reality Crew, the Thrift Fam as we were formerly known. But we do like to still embrace our roots and do have a laugh and joke and hold on to the unpolitically correct values of yesteryear. So there we are, guys, nearly very at the end. So all it does sort of need to remain for me to do is get our little dancing girl, and again, she's an anime dancing girl. She's all cute and cuddly, bouncing around there on the screen for you. And as I did say a couple of times, it's a little bit of a homage to a show I grew up on back in the UK called Tales of the Unexpected, which I did suggest maybe you might want to go and put into your YouTube search after you watch this, just to go and see the intro, to see the influence and purpose behind the little dancing girl that we've got going on here. And you won't know how long it took me to get her to, at the very end, line up in lean on the graphics there. So we are at the end, guys. Here we are saying goodnight. God bless, take care, may the force be with you. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. and I'm just going to do an Alien Fiction Decoded just on purpose because nobody wanted to see it, so that's your excuse not to tune in tomorrow. But as those of you that did join me tonight, thank you very, very much. It was a very enjoyable and entertaining, as well as a somewhat informative show tonight. A lot of great comments, a lot of good interaction. So as I said, guys, those of you who enjoyed yourself tonight, come back tomorrow. We can do it all again, where we'll probably be talking about Asian fiction that we will be decoding for you. So as I said, guys, may the force be with you all. Keep it thrifty until tomorrow. Remember, the most important thing of all, to be excellent to each other. This was Reality Decoded, brought to you courtesy of Ship Video Productions. See you tomorrow, guys, and thanks for tuning in.